After a brutal fight with her parents, a blonde adventure girl decides to bolt from home for the weekend and dive straight into her favorite hobby. She strides up to what looks like a royal palace or maybe a guild hall, and the staffer snaps, "Hand over your card," then makes her fill out the palace entry form. Then she grabs the ladder and climbs, face locked in focus, pushing upward like she's got no time to waste. Suddenly, a colossal solo dungeon entrance bursts into view on the side of a cliff, decked out in ornate, jaw-dropping architecture. The structure looms hard against the rocky mountain wall, and boom, turns out this is Sagu, a beginner-friendly dungeon. This town is built for gatherer and hunter adventurers to rake in coin, while brand new recruits get their first real experience without getting wiped out. The guild staff runs the place like a war machine. Everything's locked down tight, so trouble barely even has a chance. Up high in those upper levels, you'll even stumble into sightseeing tour that let you gawk at the view. She looks around and points out that plenty of people come here just to have fun, like her. Then a staff member asks if she wants the elevator, and she snaps back with a half-rude card. No matter how many times she shows up, it still hits her like the first day. This place keeps screaming that she's not in her real world anymore. The moment she stepped inside, the whole world seemed to shift. Magic pressed on her like a living weight, and even the air felt different. This exploration is scheduled to last 2 days. She's gearing up to drop straight to the lowest floor and stake her claim for the night, double-checking every last piece of gear: magic boots, a magic bag, plus a tent, sleeping bag, food, water, and a bunch of enchanted tools. Sagu has 13 floors total, count 'em, one after another. And there's this transfer elevator that shoots you up to the 8th floor, one way, for a cool 500 gold. From the 8th floor up, you don't ride anything, you're walking the whole way. She snaps her magic boots on, then grins and turns the descent into her training run. Racing down the corridor at full throttle, he barely even had time to breathe, while another adventurer strolls along in the background. Then she launches into a full sprint through the dungeon, blasting down her shortcut route and carving through it for about an hour until the path carries her through. She slips past most of the monsters like they never even had a chance. Thanks to her magic boots, those things basically carried her like pure destiny. Her body feels weightless, and that tiny bit of exhaustion never even shows up. A hulking monster explodes past the corridor in a blur as she sprints after it at full speed. And up on the stairs, another adventurer comes into view, while below, tiny slime creatures just sit there, totally harmless, as she strides past them. At last, she plummets into the very deepest layer. While the higher floors swarm with all kinds of monsters, Sagu's deepest layer drops you into a massive field dungeon all by itself. The scene bursts open into a massive underground world, towering mountains, a dark forest ringed around a shadowy lake, like the whole place is hiding a secret. If you're an adventurer chasing cold, hard cash, this is the place to be. She scans the horizon, eyes locked on the magic detector as it hums in her hand. These monsters are mostly low-level, so you can dive in solo without much to fear. She spots where the safe zone is today, because these zones don't stay put, so every adventurer has to stay sharp and constantly track where it moves. Because the routes are few, she can take a rough guess at where the creatures are headed. No matter which road they choose, they'll be right there by evening, passing close enough to feel it. She decides to hang back right here and wait. The route and speed change day to day, but the rhythm stays so clear you can almost feel what's coming next. She slips into the forest, then vanishes into the tall grass like she's setting a perfect trap. She hit the ground in a tight hunting stance, weapon poised and ready to strike. She locks onto the forest through her scope and sweeps the terrain in tight sections. Her eyes lock on with razor-sharp focus as she watches, holding her breath, waiting for the moment to strike. Then, just as she turns her head, a massive serpent creature bursts into view and slithers straight through the area, snatching her full attention. She spots it's a crun serpent and practically lights up, because this is the kind of meat everyone's begging for. And if it's a huge one, it'll rake in a damn fine price. She drops it, then leans in close, checks the body and confirms, yep, it's just a normal-sized specimen. It's her first shot, so yeah, this'll work. She curls up beside the serpent's corpse, calm as can be, because as long as her own life isn't on the line, it's good dungeon etiquette to haul back every creature she's hunted. Normally, she wipes out her targets, grabs the kills, and dashes straight to the Adventurers Guild with them. But the serpent's too tiny to let go, so she decides to keep it instead of selling it. She sometimes goes full butcher on monsters herself. Krun's serpent's liver is a prized delicacy, and because it's easy to prep, it turns into a feast even common folk can enjoy. She hacks the serpent herself, keeps all the loot to herself, then as soon as she's done, she spots three bird-type monsters soaring overhead, snatches them with her massive magic bag, stuffs them in whole, and sells the birds exactly as they are. As the dungeon shadows stretch and the light starts to fade, she clocks the perfect timing, then darts into the safety zone. Turns out the safe zone isn't a place at all. It's a gigantic turtle beast called Max Turtle, and Chan's the herbivore crawling along at a painfully slow 6 kilometers per hour, dozing with a whole neighborhood on its back, and now the guild's selling the supplies it carries. She sprints up the stairs and clambers onto the turtle's back. A male adventurer shouts to her like they're old friends, clocking her instantly as the one who just wiped out that muggle bird. He asks if she's one of those regulars, and before he can blink, she steps closer. Then boom, a bunch of adventurers swarm around them. One of them leans in and asks to trade, insisting he needs muggle bird materials for his adventure rank exam quest. And it hits hard. A safe zone isn't just for healing up, it's where adventurers swap intel and haggle deals. Meanwhile, a guild-linked adventurer instructor steps in and snaps that trading during the rank exam is normally off-limits, but then she adds that because it's happening as part of the exam, he'll let it slide. Because dungeon diving is basically her casual hobby, she almost never trades or negotiates, so when a chance like this drops in her lap to meet other adventurers, she pounces on it. She can't believe it, no matter how you slice it. That's a wildly weird nickname to get stuck with. And she comes here so damn often that there's a crisp, obvious mark in the ground where her tent used to sit, right at her favorite spot. Smash that like button, then hit subscribe. Don't miss a single episode. For more secret manga gems, now I dare you to come. Bro, comment and tell me. I'm absolutely loving this, and I bet most of you. So you better not back out. Alright, now let's keep going. She snaps her fireproof, waterproof tent into place, gets everything camp-ready, tent up, fire going, sleeping bag laid on a mat, then drops 3 barrier stones around the perimeter like she's sealing the deal before sleep hits. Next comes dinner. She's about to cook the liver she just got, plus the vegetables she received. She rinses the liver over and over with clean, fresh water. Then he slams it on the grill, seasons it with salt and pepper, and sandwiches it between juicy vegetables. The final masterpiece looks like gourmet burgers plated to perfection, just waiting for you to take that first bite. She plops down to eat, and that bite hits, springy but silky on her tongue. The aftertaste stays light, almost chicken-like, with zero hint of gaminess, and it pairs like a dream with bread or crisp fresh veggies. That dungeon meal is downright delicious, stuffing her belly while flooding her with magic, like she could keep eating forever. Praise be to dungeon food. After she finishes her meal, she brews tea, strikes a lamp into life, then sinks in. While her eyes stay locked on the prize, she methodically cleans her gun and keeps every piece of her gear in top shape. She figures out that trying this at home would be way too loud, so she chooses the dungeon campsite, and it's the perfect spot. Then she slips off Max Turtle and slides down as it barrels through the dungeon. While the safe zone hums with calm, the other adventurers keep whispering about her. One dark-haired guy insists she feels like she's seen it all, but someone else snaps back that only a real veteran wouldn't keep showing up in beginner dungeons like this. Someone else chimes in that they only catch her about once a week, and after the next adventure wraps, it hits. She's not really an adventurer at heart, she's more like a hobbyist. The male adventurer can't stop thinking about her. Her basics are rock solid, her knowledge hits every mark, and even with C-rank combat power, it's still more than enough. If she turned this into her profession, she'd cash in big. Meanwhile, when night falls, the gigantic Max Turtle curls up and sleeps peacefully in the dungeon, so the adventurer can't stop wondering, who is she really, and what's her deal when nobody's watching? She shuts off the last flicker of the fire, finishes cleaning her gun, and then collapses into bed to finally catch some sleep. The safe spot is icy, rickety, and barely holding steady, and the draft chills her to the bone, while monster cries echo in the distance. The dungeon traps the flies in 2 worlds. By day they blaze under the sun, but once night falls they only give off a dim little glow, and the real starry sky looks nothing like what those fake lights ever promise. She sprawls peacefully in her sleeping bag, staring up at the real, star-filled sky hanging over the dungeon. The scenery feels peaceful and unreal. She just smiles to herself, thinking dungeons might be the best hobby ever. When morning finally breaks, Max Turtle jerks back to life, then starts stomping forward, shaking the very ground. Suddenly, she freezes. She just remembered she left her homework behind. She deconvinced herself the morning would be quick, one last hunt, then she'd pack it all up and head home. She throws up her hands, figures its fate, and turns around, right now, while she still can. She barrels out of the dungeon and heads straight to the Adventurers Guild to check in, then she drops down from. Max Turtle and the other adventurers tearfully wave goodbye to her. Then she drags all the collected loot up to the buyback counter, only for the guild worker to warn her that the buyback rates have been tanking lately, and this might turn into a straight-up loss. While they're still judging her, she rushes to the public bath and scrubs every last speck of grime off her skin. Once she refilled her supplies and pocketed her payment, back home she's draped in luxurious noble finery, sipping tea like a queen, while a maid quietly busies herself in the background. Meanwhile, her father is exploding with fury, shouting that it was a tea party, where even the crown prince himself showed up, and if she had just handled it right, getting engaged to him wouldn't be some impossible fantasy. He leans in and tells her, dead serious, that she has to wake up and finally understand what it really means to be the count's daughter. She shoots a glare like she's fed up with everything, and in her head she curses tomorrow, back to the same dull school grind and those unbearable noble get-togethers. That night she leans over her mansion view and blurts out, "Forget this, I just want to head for a dungeon." The Kransar Penso Godet is a massive serpent that slithers through the very bottom floor of the dungeon. Without a speck of poison and dragging its feet, it's still become the most chaste monster on every adventurer's list. The meat from these things keeps the streets of the royal capital fed, filling common tables day after day. Back at the palace, one person boldly admits, "Yep, I already know all of this." Meanwhile, that skin and bones usually get turned into tools and everyday necessities, while the tiny liver, people say commoners treat it like a delicacy. The protagonist sits in a steaming bath, glaring like something is about to snap his patience. Then someone shouts at Lady Florentina like, "What are you even doing over there?" She's totally peeking out from behind something in the palace, and get this, the soup brewed from the skin and bones of a crayon serpent tastes ridiculously good. When a skilled chef serves nobles and poors real time and care into every bite, it turns into a true delicacy. A servant keeps insisting it's just for the staff, claiming the young lady can't get a single bite, no matter that it's made from the souvenirs she herself dragged back. Another servant snaps into panic, blurting that once the master finds out, it'll be game over. They can't possibly let the young lady chow down on ingredients this cheap. Meanwhile, the protagonist barrels through the streets, fully geared up with her weapon and all her equipment. On weekends, she tells you her secret hobby, solo dungeons, and then lights up talking about hunting and camping out in the beginner dungeon, Sagu. Sometimes she swings hard one way or the other, and today she's going all in on camping. She's gearing up to whip up some seriously tasty camp food, and she's got a top-tier Magi thermos that can heat, cool, and boil on command. Pricey as hell, but totally worth every cent. She's going to bolt straight for the safe zone on the lowest floor. Once she checks in, she'll whip the ingredients into shape before she ever steps into the dungeon. That night, she'll dig into clan serpent soup with a steaming cup of tea, then slow down just enough to soak in the view, while she methodically cleans her gun. She's cooking up a deeply simmered, hearty cream risotto that smells like pure comfort. At the guild, the worker snatches the request and demands her card, so the protagonist raises it high like a challenge. Ready to kick back and run a chill dungeon camp, she races to the dungeon entrance and pushes straight into the safe zone. The lowest safe zone sits on Max Turtle, whose personality flips by the second, but her route prediction blew up, and the turtle wasn't where she swore it would be. She clocks the truth and realizes they won't get here for at least half a day, no matter how long she waits, and she can't believe this had to break on a day like today. She slams her focus into boosting her mana, then tries to soothe Max Turtle with a few pets, but it just won't be helped. Meanwhile, Florentina rides atop Max Turtle, charging straight into the safe zone while brushing off every monster that tries to stop her. She's been darting and sprinting across the upper floors ever since clearing enemies and grabbing loot can take forever in that dungeon, and there's an unwritten rule: adventurers must bring back everything they take, unless their life is on the line. As she rockets through, she sees movement ahead, and boom, a living creature steps into view. She's convinced it could be a clan serpent, that's the only thing that makes sense in her mind. Florentina squares off against a Kamnari Wagma, an ultra-advanced monster from the beginner dungeon saga that shows up just a handful of times each year. A massive bear-like monster looms in front of her. This is the first time she's ever laid eyes on a living specimen, and it's the Thunderstorm Carrier, ranking a number 5 on the encounter rate. With her sword already drawn, she charges the bear like it's about to be ripped open. Then Florentina pauses, eyes sharp, weighing her next move as she remembers its defenses aren't exactly legendary, and if she hits the right vital spot, she can probably drop it. She snaps to the terrible truth: they have to tear it apart and pull out the magic stone first, or that magic bag is going to shatter. That creature is so monstrously strong you can't hit her head on without wrecking her precious gear, so instead you stalk the real gold: thunder, bears, meat, and hide, plus a perfect taxidermy specimen that can sell for hundreds of millions. A prize so legendary it would make even the most battle-worn adventurer drop to their knees and grin. But here's the catch, she's never taken down a bear that massive, and hunting for that magic stone is going to chew up the whole day with zero time to even eat. So she locks in her decision, running is her only play. She's doing it for fun, like a hobby she can't stop enjoying. The moment Thunder Bear's first trait clicks in, everything changes. If someone runs, the monster reads it as prey and charges after them, and Florentina just explodes into motion as the massive bear roars and tears through the dungeon after her. Then trait number 2 slams into view. That bear is using magic on purpose, because a magic stone is embedded deep inside its body. The creature hurls magical assaults while it closes in on her. Florentina realizes there's no stopping it, so she maxes out her mana and slams her weapon into the charging bear with everything she has. After the clash, Florentina gasps for air, her magic nearly drained and the safe zone slipping farther and farther away, so once she catches her breath for a moment, she surges forward. She's already fought her way this far, so now it has to work out. But the bear catches her scent again, sharp as a tracker, and the moment it locks on, it starts hunting them through the dungeon without letting up. Florentina ducks up in the branches, staring down as the creature tears through the area hunting her, then it hits her. The magic boots aren't saving her anymore. One boot has already slipped off, and as she clutches the last of her cover, she braces for the next move. Then Florentina goes full berserk and slams straight into the Thunder Bear. The massive creature rips into the fight, roaring as she throws everything she has at it. Arrows slammed into its body as the fight surged, then her dodges flew, and her counters landed, snapping the bear's jaws shut with savage fury. A battle erupts, pure brutality as an adventurer collides headfirst with a monster. Eventually, the brawl finally dies down. Florentina stands tall and victorious, wheezing through hard breaths, because even after she blasted it in the head point blank, that monster kept moving for a full 20 minutes. She stares down the monster carcass, counting the damage. Yeah, the hide's riddled with holes, but it's still more than enough for 2 coats, over 100 kilos of meat, and even a few rare parts she can use for medicine and man, this one's a big one. Somewhere inside this gigantic mess, she's got to hunt down a magic stone, big as a ping-pong ball. Florentina plants her feet and forces her mind to lock in, because she refuses to lose that spark of confidence. She'll tear this thing apart with every skill in her body, right as the work kicks off. Hours crawl by as she hacks into the colossal bear, her feet pacing the dungeon floor back and forth. Day just keeps dragging, and the whole world around her keeps shifting like it can't stand still. Eventually, she crumples to the ground, utterly drained from the brutal grind. She tore things apart for 4 hours, trekked for 3 more to reach the safe zone, and still, she can't find the magic stone anywhere. Florentina just slumps there, soaked in sweat and barely hanging on. Her magic is almost gone, and her stamina is dead. First up, she has to wash her hands. Then bam, she lights the fire, throws up the tent in the barrier stone, and finally gets to the meat. She gets it all set, then wham, she crashes at the perfect moment. A bird drops onto a nearby branch and lands right there, like it's watching too. Then he utterly blows it again, completely missing her. Just a plain shot from the local wildlife. Meanwhile, Florentina lies knocked out cold under her tent in the safe zone, and other adventurers close in fast, until the male adventurer she knows spots her, stares at the tent covering her, and blurts, "What's going on here?" Another adventurer drops to a crouch, right in front of her, and demands to know what's wrong, then asks whether she really had no luck yesterday. By daybreak, Florentina barely even reacts, because before she can fully wake up, it's already almost noon, and morning is basically long gone. Word ripped through the adventurers. By yesterday, there was a witness, and a bunch of them stormed in right away just to be safe. Turns out this round's rank exam quest is brutal. Get a Thunder Grizzly's paw, and yeah, they've got one. The male adventurer's eyes bulge. She drops the Thunder Grizzly in one brutal hit. Florentina looks wiped out and furious, and the second someone sees her, they scramble to negotiate. "Give us something we can trade in 2 weeks." But she slams it down. There's nothing worth trading for material this rare. Then the adventurer pushes back, insisting that if the value lines up, trade negotiations are on the table. Florentina's done no more games. She pushes, "We settle this next week," because that dinner meeting is too important, and she absolutely has to be back by 4 in the afternoon, plus she's already booked tonight. The male adventurer leans in and asks, "So you're heading to eat?" But she hesitates like the answer could cost her everything. But he's effectively forced the truth into the open. She has to leave. Then the male adventurer tells Florentina, "Don't take potions on an empty stomach," and demands to know if she has something she can grab and eat right now. Florentina stares at the bowl in her hands and blurts out that it's crane serpent soup. They all crowd in as she starts cooking, and someone blurts out that the heat is insane, like this food keeps warming forever, and that it looks nothing like what you'd find in stores. Then another person says it doesn't even look like it'll fill you up much. Florentina rips up some dried meat, tosses it into the bowl, and the soup starts rocking, packed with dried vermicelli, dried wakame, and magic tofu. The male adventurer breaks it down step by step. He tells her to pour the soup in, sprinkle in her favorite spices, and toss in the dungeon mitsuba they grabbed earlier. Then slap the lid on tight and wait exactly 3 minutes. He insists it'll be ready just as they finish cleaning up, right before she grabs the potion. After they finish eating, Florentina lines in and demands, "Where did you run into that bear?" The male adventurer waves off her thanks and tells her those bear materials she handed him are already way more than he needs. Then someone perks up, saying maybe this means hope still isn't gone yet. He adds that if those bears are showing up in packs, the guild has to be warned right away. And just like that, everyone gets the order. Go now, bring the bowl straight back to the guild reception desk. Florentina clutches the bowl and regrets it all. If she had just cooked and eaten the soup at home, she could have savored it so much more easily. But she knows better. Unexpected troubles strike any time, and dungeon danger is always lurking right alongside everything else. She stares down at the steaming bowl of noodles in front of her, then steadies herself like she's bracing for whatever comes next. Then she starts tearing into it, and the male adventurer just stares. She absolutely annihilates that bowl of soup, chowing down those noodles with full-blown, pure satisfaction. Florentina's face lights up with pure bliss as she digs into the bowl. Right then, the other adventurers break into full panic when a roar rips through the air nearby, while the male adventurer's sweat pours as fear spikes, and someone yells, "Maybe there's still a shot with the bear." But here's the truth, those dungeon meals are crazy good, like you can't believe how amazing they taste. Meanwhile, a megaphone blast rolls through the area, screaming out for every adventurer to drop what they're doing and come running. A squad of people dressed like officials stands behind a desk for the Royal Capital Adventurers Support and Assistance Association, and they just slam the news down. Starting today, they've seized control of the whole area. The Segota Dungeon Purchasing Department is shutting down every monster purchasing operation, and Florentina stands there, absolutely furious at what's happening. Yeah, this hits hard for this entire period. The story cuts to Florentina's real life. On weekends, she disappears into solo dungeons, sprinting through monster-filled halls, and then pitching camp until the hunt is done. She does it partly because it's her hobby, but she's worn out, struggling every time, stacking all kinds of stuff like it's her life's mission. Storage for the mess, souvenirs for the memories, and then she's saving up the whole haul to sell next time. A diagram shows her boxed in by a pile of food, arrows yanking everything toward the center, meat and veggies hitting the perfect balance, so she can savor it all every weekend during her hobby. Then Florentina's magic bag suddenly starts screaming with beeps, low capacity, rising mana drain, and before long it's packed solid, overflowing with power. She barrels up to the guild counter, ready to dump her goods for cash before she even steps into the dungeon. But once she finally arrives, she stumbles onto an entirely unexpected scene, right in the middle of something she never saw coming. Neither the staff nor the adventurers so much as flinched at the chaos. Florentina strides up to the reception desk and demands to know what the hell is going on. A guild worker with a headband steps up, greets her like she owns the place, and asks if this is her first time here, since she's usually a regular. The guild worker tells them that every few years, the Royal Capital Adventurer Support Association, adventurers, partners, and their families all together, ends up storming in and taking over the guild's buyback section. Florentina's face twists in confusion when the worker casually drops the bomb that every monster material and or buyback is suspended. Then, when she asks how long, he shrugs and says it lasts until they've bought enough to be satisfied, usually about 3 days. But even with the buybacks shut down, the guild worker still lights up with pure excitement. He explains that dungeon veggies are flying off the shelves. Right now, dungeon daikon and dungeon napa cabbage are in season, so the buyback prices are skyrocketing, and they're scrambling because they need vegetables badly. The guild worker leans in and spells it out. Adventurers don't do anything but hunt and devour meat, so the guild's food stores are packed to the brim with it. Someone blurts out that veggies sprout naturally on the lowest floors, and that they're packed with magic power perfect for an adventurer's meal. Then Florentina freezes in total shock. He keeps talking. Those dungeon vegetables only grow deep inside dungeons, nowhere near the guild, so they jack up the price at the market and get snapped up fast. And to stop people from getting nutrition out of balance, the support committee keeps ordering forced adjustments on the regular. The worker snaps that people only chase monsters for the cash they rake in, but you can't live on meat forever, not even if you want to. She cheers Florentina on and thanks her for filling out the registration form. Then it points out that Florentina's still stuck at E rank. A guild worker grins and hands over the rules for what happens the moment an E rank adventurer steps into the dungeon. The male adventurer leans in and asks if Florentina knows the rule while she just stands there, absorbing every word as they explain it. Then he says the guild can demand that E rank adventurers get hauled into designated exploration and gathering, all under an instructor's watch, and Florentina snaps, realizing it's basically kidnapping. The story whips down to the very bottom of the Sagoa dungeon. Fresh reinforcements thunder into the harvest site the moment the guild worker spots Florentina and yells her name, while a pack of adventurers panic harvest vegetables from giant fields, and one of them snaps that no matter how much they yank, the endless supply just won't quit. That male adventurer stares at a whole sea of vegetables and realizes none of it was ever tilled. He snaps that dungeon greens breed like monsters, and if you leave them alone, even rare herbs get smothered before they ever get a chance to grow. Usually the plant-eating monsters chow down on the veggies, but lately they can't even catch up because humans have been slaughtering those herbivores nonstop. Florentina shoots him a sharp look as the male adventurer warns that if the dungeon's balance snaps, it'll trigger a stampede, and that would be a nightmare for everyone. The instructor snaps at Florentina, telling her that as an E-rank adventurer, she doesn't get to hide behind rights or refuse anything today, then orders her to start harvesting everything, one by one. The scene shows huge vegetable fields stretching wild across the dungeon floor like they own the place. The male adventurer calls everyone in and shows them exactly how to harvest radishes, grab them by the base of the leafy tops and yank, because the real prize is buried deep in the soil. Florentina stares down at what she's clutching, doubts it's even a radish, then starts yanking at it. Meanwhile, that guild worker with the headband leans in and demands Florentina show him exactly how to work the hoe in the soil. Florentina is already clutching a massive radish she somehow yanked straight from the ground, and the male adventurer snaps that if it cracks, she can't possibly pay for it, so she should haul it back with her. Florentina gapes at the giant thing and asks, was the soil really that tough? Someone nearby blurts out, wait, your sister's got a weird weakness. I had no idea. And then another person leans in and goes, guess the world really is perfectly balanced after all. Florentina just freezes, staring at the massive pile of harvested vegetables like her brain can't process what she's seeing. The adventurer scoffs and says, vegetables do mean you lack hunting skill. At least, that's not what I'm saying, then adds, and from the guild's side, you're welcome to join us, no problem. The instructor's right there, rocking shades with a crazy sparkle effect swirling around her. Florentina snaps, wait just a second, calling him back mid-motion. The male adventurer gives her a nod, then presses, can she deal with it soon? Florentina replies in a soft, steady voice. The story snaps down to the lowest floor safe zone, where that massive herbivore creature sleeps like it owns the place. The instructor snaps that this place has been taken over the same way as the purchasing department, just like that. She tells you this, half the veggies they buy don't just sit around, they're turned into preserved food right on the spot. The whole place is packed with jars of preserved goodies, and she leans in like, you know what, when we process food in the dungeon, it lasts way longer, plus the flavor and magic hit harder. And yep, most of what the guild sells. That stuff is mostly made by the support association. The male adventurer snaps that the workers down below can't survive on vegetables alone, so he orders a full meal up here, cooked while the men are still working. Then the male adventurer leans in and tells Florentina he wants her to go snag some meat with him, something quick to cook, like snakes. He figures she's way more suited to digging in the dirt than chasing prey anyway. The instructor clocks it instantly. Florentina may have looked like she didn't care, but deep down, she absolutely does care about her own abilities. The camera swings wide over the dungeon, and the male adventurer thinks, that's how it works for us, lean on your strengths, split the jobs by what you do best. And Florentina, she's got a talent for her role, no doubt about it. In the forest, this creature wears flowering branches on its antlers, and somehow the whole scene feels washed in a hazy, dreamlike mist. She barrels straight at the deer and swings her blade, convinced that after watching it nibble and sizing it up, she's got more than enough meat. Then Florentina jolts to attention, something clicks in her mind in an instant. The vegetables that had gone wild in her garden didn't stand a chance, her ravenous monsters devoured them all. Then we slam into a brutal close-up, her deer eye locks in, and her blade comes crashing down. But the deer keeps chomping down the extra veggies, then it explodes into a sprint and bolts straight through the forest. Florentina watches the creature vanish into the distance, and the relief hits hard because they actually got away. Then someone grabs Florentina and tells her to stop hunting because it's closed season right now. While that happens, another worker yells for her to hurry over and help take care of the tree. The worker swears nature is built to run smooth, but the moment people step in, it all goes off the rails, so someone has to jump in and keep everything moving, and then she leans in and tells her to remember that. Florentina stares at the mess and realizes, if that tree dies, the creatures will lose their only meal. She admits this kind of straight-up conservation work isn't her thing, but it's still ramming complicated thoughts into her head. Later on, Florentina hoists that gigantic pile of radishes she just harvested, and the weight digs into her shoulders as she trudges on. She keeps replaying what she learned. If they don't hunt monsters, the balance tips, the dungeon explodes with monsters, and they stampede out like nothing can stop them. But holding that balance steady is brutal work, and then it hits her. Her magic bag flashes a warning, storage space is almost gone. And Florentina finally clicks, this is the real reason everything's been going wrong. Before she even thinks about all that crazy dungeon ecology, she's gotta handle the real problem first. Her inventory is bursting at the seams. Florentina slides on her sunglasses like it's showtime, while the male adventurer looms behind her, ready for whatever comes next. The workers stop dead and demand, what happened to the young lady? Then the male adventurer blurts out what she told him. She couldn't catch a thing, yet the vegetables they're staring at are leftovers pulled straight from her magic bag, the one she said they could use however they wanted, and the workers go wide-eyed at just how much she hauled in so fast. One of them laughed and said, she's gonna try harder at hunting, like it was game-changing. The male adventurer and Florentina crouch over the heap of freshly harvested vegetables, and he leans in like it's a lesson. He's convinced that a real adventurer doesn't just respect the dungeon, he keeps pushing himself forward every day. Meanwhile, someone drops a rumor that Florentina dabbles in adventuring like it's just a hobby, but nobody's got proof. Then another person points out that if instructor Roman is actually taking an interest in her, she's got to be headed for something big. The instructor swings back with a huge thank you for everyone pushing through the late hours, says there's tons of food waiting, and basically gives them permission to eat as much as they want. That giant herbivore dozes peacefully in the back while everyone busts their butts. Out front, Florentina's vegetable feast is laid out. Simmered daikon, pepper stir-fry with meat and Chinese cabbage, and quick pickles ready to hit the table. The workers dive in, start praising every bite, and someone blurts out, that daikon soaked up all that flavor. While someone else swears that meat and Chinese cabbage are a match made in heaven. A third worker chimes in that those lightly pickled veggies hit like a perfect palate cleanser. Florentina picked her food with razor-sharp focus, like every bite mattered. She's stuck in this dungeon, and out of nowhere she's like, wait, vegetables actually taste good, and realizes, yeah, this is the first time she's ever genuinely thought about it. Even after they're fully cooked, the vegetables still snap with a satisfying crunch, and that savory meat flavor melts right into them like it was made for the job. The male adventurer plops down nearby and tells him that tons of the supporters club are cooking fanatics. Florentina straight up says she's not chasing a higher rank again, but she can't deny she'd love to jump into one of these events once more someday. The male adventurer leans in and tells her that even the top-ranked adventurers come every single time, just for the food. Someone drops a comment about the perfect dungeon balance, then another character chimes in with pork miso soup, and Florentina admits she still doesn't really get all the hard stuff yet. She digs into her bowl and decides she's finally going to start loving meat and vegetables the balanced way. Thanks to the E-rank adventurers' hard work, the exchange section roared back to life the next afternoon, while Florentina clutched yet another full pot of food made from battered veggies, muttering that she's still got a long, long road before she can finally get this balance right. A rapid montage slams onto the screen as Florentina talks about her favorite solo dungeon, and when she says spending her weekends raiding one just to chill out, it sounds less like a hobby and more like a ritual she's been doing forever. Then the story snaps to weekdays. Someone leans in and asks her, so what do you do on weekdays? Exam schedule papers and notices are slapped on every wall, and someone blurts out that the pharmacy range is way too broad to even breathe. Florentina insists she's locking in on her studies, then a note slips her way, warning that the practical magic test is coming up next week, and it's happening sooner than anyone expected. Florentina plops in her room and tells you straight up that this weekend she's done messing around. She's dropping her hobbies and finally hitting the books for the test. She bombed the midterm just because she can't use magic, and honestly, that's a total drag. Books are scattered everywhere as she clocks how brutally strict the instructor is, yet somehow these days, there are nobles with magic power who still can't cast a single spell. She stares at the mess and realizes she has to come up with a plan, fast. Right then, a maid bustles in with a tray of tea, like she's dropping the calm right into the middle of the chaos. The maid leans in and says Florentina's got nothing to worry about with the lecturers. If she bombs the practical exam but still lands a solid final grade, her master won't even blink. Florentina answers with these eerie, cicada-like clicks that don't feel normal at all. The maid leans in and asks, "Wait, are those a brand new kind of cicadas or what?" But then the maid drops the truth. If she messes up, she's just getting stuck with more summer lessons, and Florentina instantly snaps that's exactly why she's fighting tooth and nail to stay away. She's lost in daydreams about her summer plans, jotting it all down, everything from hanging out in the Segoa dungeon to hunting down a brand new one, and she's stressing that she can't mess up, so she orders the maid to add tea parties and summer retreats to the schedule too. The maid lanes in and tells Florentina to take a quick break before she burns out. If she pushes herself too hard, it'll totally backfire. She points out that the other exams are already done, so it doesn't matter. Florentina locks in on this idea and weighs it like a secret. And he basically tells her there's no reason to lose sleep over something she can't even understand, so she decides to steal a tiny break, just for a bit, then talks herself into it again and again. Take a break, just a little. Suddenly we jump to the guild. There, a new girl with a bob haircut pops up at the reception desk and asks if Florentina is the regular lady, because the last thing she said was she wouldn't be coming this weekend. Florentina snaps to, realizing her feet dragged her straight to the guild, even though she swore she'd rest for a bit first. Then a guild worker waves her over and tells her to wait a sec at the reception desk. Florentina starts to argue she's not doing the dungeon today, but the workers are already slapping new notices onto the board. A fresh paper hits the scene and reveals the RTA, real-time attack ranking. A guild worker leans in and tells him, "It's a dungeon competition, this is where we run it." There's a stamina division and a magic division. People race to enter the dungeon and race back out for the fastest time, and right now the hero of this country is sitting in first place in both, basically daring everyone to beat him. Florentina clocks it instantly, and yeah, she realizes just how busted that is. Meanwhile, the guild worker with the headband lays out exactly how the real-time attack divisions run, starting with the stamina division, where magic is banned and everyone lives on brute strength and gear. And yeah, it's crazy popular and way tougher than it sounds. Florentina takes it all in, and you can see it click. RTA isn't some fantasy term, it's something real people actually do. She leans in and asks straight up about the magic division. The worker says the top-ranked players smash it in under 3 hours, but even the unranked folks are still stuck just over 5. At the guild, the headband-wearing girl grins and blurts out that Florentino's taking the tutorial. Then the male adventurer frowns and asks if she wasn't supposed to show up this weekend. A tutorial prompt pops up on her screen, basically asking, "Want the instructor's tutorial?" And when 2 buttons, yes and no, light up, someone clicks the option. The tutorial kicks off by laying down RTA strategy. Pick your route like it's locked in, dodge monsters whenever you can, and map your plan around your exact stamina and mana reserves. A brand new notice pops up, announcing that instructor Tudoliano just finished the training demonstration. The tutorial screams one rule: if your mana runs dry halfway through, you won't even reach the goal. The male adventurer leans in and tells Florentina, "I know this dungeon like the back of my hand, so the real question is how you ration your stamina and your mana, especially since mana potions barely help." Then he adds, "Come find me when you're ready." Florentina tells herself she's never truly sprinted up to the 8th floor before, but the map and shortcuts are still in her head. For energy, she guesses 20% on the way down, 50% when she hits the bottom floor, and the last 30% on the run back. The guild worker snaps at her to go. Right now, she can move ahead. The attack kicks off, the timer snaps to 0, and Florentina rockets forward, while the male adventurer and the guild workers stare from the starting line. Up top, the monsters are just slimes, so she guns it with nothing but speed. While the hallways choke with bodies, she cranks her magic boots down to 60% output. The timer slams to 24 minutes and 9 seconds. She cranks her output to 80%, and right then she realizes the real fight begins on the 8th layer. Florentina charges ahead on the path she knows like her own heartbeat, dead set on cutting her time down to the bone. Normally it takes her an hour, but today she's blasting through it in just 30 minutes. The camera sweeps over the jagged mountain terrain of the lowest level. And because this run is a marathon, she's gotta stop and catch her breath right on the dot at 49 minutes and 52 seconds. Just a quick rest, then she's back at it. The bottom level is packed with deadly traps, so she has to map every route and lock in every safe zone before moving. while Florentina uses her brake to tighten, test, and recheck her gear. At 1:01:28, she snaps that the brake is over and barrels straight into the heart of it. The road ahead forces a brutal decision. If she slips through the lowest layer by the shortest way, she'll have to push through a wild, pathless stretch of land where all she'll find are trees and scattered rocks. And on top of all that, you're going to run into even more monsters that lurk in the terrain, and every time they strike, it slams you into a huge detour. Then Florentina spots a clan serpent lurking nearby, and that's when everything clicks. Since it's docile, it probably won't come after them, and she vows she's not making the same mistake twice. Because if they beat it, it'll cost them a massive amount of time. The story whips us straight into the Sagoda Dungeon's lowest floor central area, where a massive glowing dungeon core looms over everything, lighting up the whole landscape. The timer ticks at 1 hour, 35 minutes, and 42 seconds, and then the instructions pop up. When she hits the core, she has to keep her participation badge held out. Once that magic stone's color flips all the way over to blazing bright red, the job is done. Florentina says the safe zone is right over there, but if they detour that way, it'll cost them time. She warns that hanging out in the central area for even a moment is pure danger. She snaps back, pushes forward, and Florentina rockets toward the entrance of the lowest level, no brakes, full speed. Then way down at the lowest entrance, the timer screams 2:02:33, and Florentina clocks that she's been on this grind for just a bit over 2 hours, plus the return route is all uphill, so she tells herself it's mostly safe. She frets over whether to down the potion, because if she does, she could shave off the rest time and maybe finish up in about another hour. Then Florentina rockets upward at full speed, hellbent on hitting the 8th layer the same way she broke her way down. She tears through the 7th layer, rips past the 6th, and storms through the 5th floor. Slimes scatter everywhere as she blasts forward. At 2 hours, 43 minutes, and 56 seconds, she bursts into the 3rd layer, just a tiny bit farther now. Florentina measures her pace and realizes, if she keeps this speed, she'll smash that goal and reach it in under 3 hours. Then reality smacks her. Her body won't move, nausea floods in, and the pain in her legs screams. The skirt and even her shoulders under that heavy bag feel painfully tight, as if they're squeezing the life out of her. It hits her like a punch. She's out of mana. Florentina slumped there, drained and desperate, racking her brain for a way out. She'd already downed a potion, so the mana potion won't work anymore. She remembers someone warning her that mana and stamina have to stay in perfect balance, and that one wrong move could get her hurt. Then the male adventurer shows up out of nowhere and shoots a question at her. What is she doing up on the upper floors? Someone leans in and tells him, "You have to hear this." Meanwhile, the male adventurer lays out his whole situation. His instructor shoved him into a cleanup gig in the upper levels, told him he's got plenty of stamina and the day pays solid, but the place is insanely massive. Then the talk flips straight to Florentina's mess, what's happening to her right now. Someone blurts out, "Finder's rights 30%. The male adventurer looks totally lost, and then another person breaks it down. She gets 30% of whatever's in the bag, and the whole group snaps into shock when they realize what that truly means. Meanwhile, Florentina size-ups everything. She's still got a little stamina left, but her magic power is completely gone. But she's got just 2 floors left. She barrels through the 3rd and hits the stairs. Even if she can't land a perfect score or snag a passing grade, if her legs can still move, then she's got something she can do. If she can still run, then she can still fight back. Florentina grits her teeth and surges forward on pure determination, refusing to let failure win. Then bam, the dungeon entrance finally comes into view, right there, almost in reach, if you can just hang on a little longer. Florentina blasts across the finish line, then crumples right at the guild entrance, and when she finally lifts her eyes, the timer flashes 3:18:40. One person is already cheering her victory, while someone else screams that it's a new record. While the male adventurer stays close by, Florentina collapses on the ground, admitting she burned through her magic halfway through the fight, no power left. A female guild worker bolts over in awe, praising her for pulling off something that wild on her very first try. Then she hesitates mid-sentence, thrown off by the way she keeps saying sis. Florentina's face crumples with total exhaustion as her thoughts drag through the pain, lungs and heart screaming, magic completely gone, nausea rolling in, and those barefoot steps leaving her feet numb. So numb she can't even tell how long it's been since she sprinted this far with no magic at all. Then a heavy silence drops over the scene as Florentina finally processes what just went down. Her thoughts snap into focus, her head feels insanely clear, and that breeze on her skin feels downright incredible. But then confusion crashes into her. Why did she even show up at the guild again? Back at the guild, the maid rushes to meet Florentina at the entrance, greets her warmly, and jokes that she's been gone for ages. Someone asks if it was all a waste, and the maid fires back that she only did it so Florentina could study better. Then Florentina admits it straight. She wasn't chasing anything fancy, she just wanted a break from cramming for tests. Then the maid lays down a stunning handmade fruit sandwich piled high with fluffy cream, and Florentina's eyes instantly sparkle at the sight. She takes one bite and the flavors explode back to life. Cream so soft, bread so fluffy and juicy, while the sugar and tart zing soak into her drained, overworked body. She shrugs and says, like always, I'll take a bath, then straight to bed tonight. The maid leans in and asks Florentina straight up if she's been studying for the practical magic exam. Florentina says she graduated from their school with pretty good grades, and someone else adds, she's stuck working here because her rank is low. The maid leans in and tells Florentina straight up, the midterm was the magic-only kind of test, but that means the final will be a brutal combo, magic plus magical tools. If Florentina digs through her practice reports and really learns what each magical tool can do, she'll be able to scrape together a passing score just by drilling the basics of mana control. Look, if someone's about to bite off a challenge, they don't just charge in, they map out a strategy first. Florentina can't shake the regret. She should have grilled that maid about all this way earlier. Honestly, stop spiraling. Just take a real break, clear your head, and you might be shocked. That breakthrough could hit way faster when you're not overthinking everything. When the weekend finally ends, the teacher strides to the front with a stack of papers in hand and blasts out the rules of the magic practical final exam. It's time to go all in, using both magic itself and the magical tools to make it work. The camera swings to the building's exterior, and the moment the announcement hits, the place erupts in chaos, because this exam is a 195 kilometer race, and if you don't finish before the clock runs out, you straight up fail, no debate. Meanwhile, one student brags that they were number one across the whole grade by a mile. Panic erupts across the classroom. Some students shout they can't handle this, while others practically beg for mercy, asking if the teacher can cut them a deal and knock the distance down by 50%. Then the screaming hits full force as they plead, "We're scared, we don't want to do it." Meanwhile, Florentina announces with pride that her hobby is solo dungeon exploration. This weekend, she's skipping the chores again, bolting straight into a beginner dungeon to blow off steam, setting up camp in the safe zone first, then going full steam on bird hunting. A note reveals a cool little secret. Safe zone is shortened to Anchai, pulled straight from Anzan Chidai. Florentina stands shoulder to shoulder with the other adventurers, tightening gear and gearing up as the expedition is about to kick off. At the dungeon, the male adventurer stands there with slime creatures crowding close by, and he bluntly declares that the safe zone is off-limits for now. The male adventurer slams the rule down. Until repairs are finished, nobody's getting into the lowest floor of F rank, so if you're not 100% sure, even E rank and up, turn back now. The scene zooms in on the busted spot, and you can tell it'll take a brutal 2 or 3 days to heal. So yeah, yesterday some total idiot got drunk, picked a fight, and then went on a rampage blasting magic everywhere. Back at the guild, the bespectacled adventurer snaps that the culprit is still lurking somewhere on the lowest floor, and right then, a female worker yells that anyone who wants in on the captured job should come see her, because if you spot them, the man immediately orders you to report back to the guild. Suddenly, someone blurts out that their uncle needs them, and boom, an invitation pops up for a matchmaking party, packed with introductions for the best matches and even ties to the royal family, but Florentina's torn, muttering about an after-party with some madam and how she'd rather go home. She pauses to think about her hobby and tells herself loud and clear, no matter how just for fun it feels, safety always comes first. While the other adventurers lose it at the sight of someone showing up with kids, they blurt out, "Are you really taking children into the dungeon?" One guy tries to claim it'll be a great experience, but the rest are screaming at them to stop, because this place is pure danger. Then Florentina's mind snaps to a memory. Some guy's voice rings out that you can make your own safety, and suddenly she's hearing the exact same words her great-uncle used to say. She buys into it, fired up and loud, screaming about safety, then commits, deciding to give it a shot, and maybe even try catching one herself. Down at the bottom of the panel, the dungeon map snaps into view, 2 normal camping spots marked clearly, and the first one sits on the lowest floor, right outside the safe zones. It's this massive cliff that monsters can't easily reach, so if something slips up there, you can scramble to the upper level fast. But here's the catch. There's a ton of traffic, so getting any real breathing room is brutally hard. Your other option is a shrine office that guards the dungeon core, plus a break room where anyone can duck out of the rain. But here's the catch. There's a brutal chance that advanced monsters or mutants will crash the party. Then the dungeon map finally pops up, with the entrance to the lowest level clearly marked, and they point out that cliffside camping spot again, because that escape route is pure gold. Yeah, heavy traffic is the killer drawback. There's shelter in the shrine area by the dungeon core, but the wind whips nonstop and dangerous monsters start spawning. Florentina admits she'd normally pick the first option. Then she drops, so I found this wild spot the other day, and starts heading straight for a cave entrance tucked right into the dungeon terrain. Florentina slips into the cave, studies the tiny entrance, and as soon as she's inside, she's hit with shock, because it's way more spacious than that narrow opening ever promised. She whips her head around and spots features shoved all over the cave, air holes in every direction, even right on the sleeping platform. They carved a sleeping platform straight into the rock. And get this, there's even a stone circle made just to hold a roaring campfire. Florentina watches like, yeah, people are still using this spot, but the campfire marks look pretty worn out, so they're probably not the work of that same culprit. Then she spots fresh campfire scorch marks and realizes the wood has been rearranged since the last time she showed up. She stares at the setup and suddenly gets it. Sogo's safe zone was carved out 50 years ago, so this secret camping hideout had to be built way before then. She finally dives in first. She hauls a rope net up over the cave entrance with materials she scavenged inside. Florentina clenched her jaw, locked in her focus, and declared, "All right, let's start the safety setup." Then Florentina yanks monster-repelling herb vines tight around the rope net she snaps up at the cave entrance. Then she strikes a match, sparks up a campfire, and tosses in some dried herbal vines. The smoke slithered through the air, carrying the hated herb stench from monsters. Humans couldn't name it, but they could only guess. It smells like herbs. Meanwhile, Florentina blasts away the monsters with sound too, even as she freely admits it's something humans would probably find pretty awful. As the campfire crackles, she keeps reminding herself, never, ever take your eyes off the flames if you're the responsible adult. In Sago, these low-level monsters get taken down, at least for now, before the prey bolts for safety, but Florentina doesn't hesitate. She slashes her catch, checks today's results, then freezes when she senses it, the scent of an S-class monster driving every other monster back. And just like that, she blocks the cave entrance from the inside, sealing it tight with white wolf fur. All right, next up, cooking time. Today's menu: black bread and a herb-roasted cookbird. Florentina fires up the grill, lining up her seasoned herb-rubbed skewers and getting them ready to sizzle. Then roast it slowly over a low, crackling campfire. That oil hits heavy, but if you're dipping it into softer bread, it's gonna go next level, sweet and salty at once, with a rich, mouth-coating flavor. And thanks to the herbs, that nasty smell disappears, and the meat comes out crispy on the outside, juicy on the inside. The sun slides out of the sky, and she decides to crash for the night. She'll tackle cleaning the gun tomorrow. But the moment Florentina finally settles in, a wave of panic hits. She forgot her sleeping bag and blanket, and even the barrier stone. Night crashes over the dungeon like a heavy curtain. And tucked right into the terrain, the cave stays out of sight, while Florentina's campfire flickers inside, daring anyone to find it. She's curled up on that stone platform, wrapped tight in her gear like she's bracing for the next attack. Down below, 3 tough male adventurers, weapons in hand, push deeper into the dungeon. The adventurers spot the cave, and one of them fires up. "Let's strip whoever's inside of everything valuable. There were really people here, so they left something behind." The dark-haired guy starts ranting that they're being treated like criminals just because of a tiny scuffle, screaming that those bastards treat C-rank guys like they're criminals too. His companion jumps in like, "Easy, swap that loot for cash, vanish from this country, then start fresh as adventurers somewhere else and rake in money again." Then they spot the cheap barrier stone. One guy snaps that if they keep him this far away, he's useless and won't help at all. And some go, "Yeah, that actually sounds great." Then they grin and ask, "So, should we have some fun since it looks like a woman?" Suddenly, one of the adventurers stomps the barrier stone under his boot, then laughs, "Trash adventurers for a trash dungeon." The brawl erupts, and Florentina blasts her gun straight from the ground. The shot slams into one of the criminal adventurers and blasts him flying backward. The dark-haired criminal yanks out his sword, and the male adventurer keeps his distance, fretting as if something terrible is about to happen. Dirt and blood splash across her face. Florentina snarls curses at the attackers as they barrel in, then she snaps something shut and keeps her gun raised, staring them down with pure steel. And just like that, the trap asterisk snaps to life, boom. A rope net shoots out and traps 2 criminal adventurers, yanking them into the air as they thrash and strain to escape, while a few get knocked out cold, but Florentina twists out of danger and avoids every vital hit. Even if it's self-defense, killing someone can come back to haunt you later, so she shrugs it off, because she's already used to aiming for monsters, weak spots anyway. Meanwhile, Florentina hustles to pin the criminals down through an air vent in the makeshift shelter, telling everyone they likely can't break free or take off right away, but the net's salvaged, so she's not sure how tough it really is. Far away, a flare rips up into the sky like a warning on fire. As they push deeper into the dungeon, adventurers all around suddenly clock it, something's definitely going on. Then one of them spots it instantly, an honest-to-goodness rescue flare. Then the rescue team bursts into Bivouac Cave. While the injured adventurers get rushed care, the criminals are still stuck, pinned tight in that net. And just like that, someone throws their gratitude at regular CIS for the help. The male adventurer tells Florentina, "File that claim and your guild contribution will jump. Maybe you'll level up without some stupid exam," then adds, "and your bounty for catching them will soar too." But Florentina brushes it off and says not to stress, because she's fine, even though the note says she's E-rank for life. Meanwhile, the other adventurers stagger into the cave's shelter and stare in jaw-dropping awe. Someone asks if Florentina built this place, but she won't say a word. Then another person cuts in and demands, "So who did?" The male adventurer leans in and tells everyone, "This isn't camp, it's a dungeon bivouac." The male adventurer lays it all out. Dungeons are everywhere across the world, and every last one of them runs wild with no safe zones in sight. In dungeons like these, adventurers have carved out bivouac spots and makeshift shelters over years of trial and error, and some of them still trace back to the days before Sago had a safe zone. The shot opens up a sprawling view of the dungeon, with crumbling shelter huts scattered everywhere, and he keeps talking. Once that safe zone showed up, people just quit using them overnight, like all that lost wisdom from their old predecessors slipped through their fingers. Then an adventurer blurts out, stunned, "Wait, people actually still use these shelters, even now." Another chuckles, "No way," but the male adventurer shuts him down fast, saying there are plenty of weirdos out there who flat out refuse to use safe zones. The guild knows about a handful of them, but this shelter, that one feels like a brand new find. Meanwhile, Florentina shoots herself a sharp thought. If someone actually treats a dungeon like a hobby, then keeping it safe isn't optional, it's a must. The male adventurer leans in and says everyone tackles dungeons their own way, just like her. How you keep things safe and still enjoy them depends on the person, and Florentina hasn't even uncovered half the tricks out there yet. Then the male adventurer says he'll come back here himself and hunt down a few other places too. He asks if that wire trap was really Florentina's idea, and she snaps, "Yeah, I completely forgot I'd laid one more trap." The preview teases that next time, Lady Tina might just slide into the nobles' tea party. Meanwhile, Florentina kicks off her weekend routine, solo dungeons on repeat, where the thrill hits hardest when she swaps into her favorite gear and dives straight into beginner runs, and right here we see her setup hanging in the closet. Her adventurer's coat, magic bag, boots, and sword. Down there, the fancy noble stuff was laid out on full display, shining like it owned the room. An ornate fan in her hand, a glittering dress stitched with intricate patterns, and an elegant white gown, everything screams royal life, the kind they're forcing her to live. Florentina bursts onto the scene dressed like pure royalty, an elegant white gown with fur trim, her decorative fan poised like a weapon. She seethes about how her shitty old man just made plans for her without even asking, and while that rage simmers, other noble ladies crowd in, praising Lady Florentina and firing off. Is that dress the trading company's new summer design? On the splash page, Florentina storms into view in her full noble dress, looking downright furious, and behind her, her dungeon gear, boots, bag, and sword are all neatly crossed out. Then the story cuts to the crown prince's estate, an elegant garden party where nobles in fancy clothes stroll across perfectly manicured grounds, Florentina clocking it and thinking, all right, this is his event, so I'll play nice for now. After she's greeted everyone, she hangs back in a corner and quietly snatches sweets until the crown prince finally shows up. Right out of nowhere, she stumbles onto a jaw-dropping chocolate showcase, an elaborate masterpiece crafted by the royal patissier, and the insane detail leaves her stunned. She leans in, studying every perfectly lined-up sweet on the platter like it's a work of art. Florentina takes a bite of the chocolate, and the moment it melts, that rich sweetness floods in and hits her exactly right. She can't help but think, man, sugar really is the best. Her mind drifts to kicking back with afternoon tea in a safe zone after a hunt, especially that fruit sandwich from the shop, and how ridiculously good it felt to get everything after the RTA. Then reality smacks her in the face when she finally shows up at those tea parties, and afterward, she's craving salty snacks way harder than any sweet treat. She straight up admits she can't even make decent tea, and then someone calls her out. if she wants to brew the real stuff, she's gonna need all the fancy equipment. Meanwhile, down at the bottom of the scene, nobles are trading gossip in the background. Someone blurts out, "Next week," and another instantly fires back, "Absolutely, we have to go." Florentina hears it, and just thinking about it, feels her urge to hit up a dungeon surge like a punch to the gut. Suddenly, an announcement blasts through the hall, Crown Prince incoming. He strides in looking dazzling, wrapped in sparkles and fanfare, and right behind him trails a second figure that nobles immediately start whispering about. Someone blurts, "Is that the hero?" And another snaps back, "Yep, that's him," walking right there behind the prince. In a tiny panel, Chibai Florentina stands rigid among the nobles. Then the crown prince strides right up, introducing her as Count Trenmel's daughter, Lady Florentina G. Trenmel, and asks, "So this is the girl you meant?" Florentina snaps into formal courtesy, responding. Even after all this time, her father still treated the prince with nothing but pure kindness. Then the crown prince swivels toward her, pointing at the hero beside him, and demands to know, does she recognize him? Florentina drops into a deep bow at once, utterly lost and trembling at what to say. So back in Eastern High-Level Dungeon, 10 years ago, something asterisk wrong happened, an abnormal gathering, and out of it crawled a calamity-class terror known as the Demon King. Right then, the hero burst in out of nowhere, boom, cutting straight to a savage flashback of adventurer silhouettes clashing against a towering demonic beast, while the hero and his crew stormed the Demon King and wiped out the whole rampaging stampede. Even now, he's out roaming the land's top-tier dungeons, tackling stampedes before they spiral out of control, carving out his legend with every expedition and monster he crushes, while the final panel locks in the moment, him in full dungeon gear, trading blows with the next wave like it's nothing. He's the nation's shining hero, the one they all pray will save them. Meanwhile, at the garden party, the crown prince ushers the hero straight to the nobles, and one noble can't help blurting out the wild truth. Even with a devoted wife, 3 kids, and a handsome face, the hero somehow still has women falling for him nonstop. Someone posts that his name just lit up the Sagar Dungeon RTA leaderboard, and he broke a record lately. Then one noble snaps, "Why is the hero even in a beginner dungeon?" And another noble girl jumps in, insisting she should introduce herself first. Someone rolls out this guy as an S-rank adventurer, and as their old party member. Then Roman Z. Geller grins and tells Lady Trenmel it was asterisk she who dragged him into it. Florentina fires back that she only went out of her way to invite him because she wanted to meet the hero, only for everyone to snap at her to stop talking. Roman tells them straight up he had to retire because of a brutal injury, and now he's working with the guild in the royal capital. Just before he formally threw his name into the group, someone in the guild blurts out that every time she shows up, she's so perfectly dressed, like she must be a merchant or even the daughter of some official. Another voice pops in like, "Wait, Florentina was in the hero's party, and not only that, you're telling me she's a noble lady now." When she hears the name Trenmel, she can't help but say it. Of course, Florentina is that strong. Roman says he caught wind of a tale about the headhunter clan's daughter, or maybe sister, then lays it all out. In Tremble territory, there's an upper-class dungeon, the only one in the country run with real order, and the clan that's managed it for generations secured their power by marrying straight into the lord's family. Florentina tells him maybe fate brought them together, and Roman smirks like he always knew. Then she says it's something her grandmother said, too. Roman blurts that the higher-ups know everything, then begs Florentina to stay quiet about him, and she nods, even asking if he'll do the same for her. Roman throws his coworkers off, because everyone else still has no clue who he really is. Meanwhile, Florentina can't stop thinking, once word gets out, they'll treat me like I'm not the same, asterisk, and she's not even pretending to hide her noble status. She just can't stand it when people suddenly start acting weird toward her. But the moment they realize she's in the hero's party, the whole thing turns into chaos. She figures that if it escapes, it's only going to turn her life into one giant headache. Florentina just stands there, annoyed to the core, like she's seconds away from snapping. Suddenly someone yells at Roman, saying it's rude to flirt with that lady in the corner like that, and orders him to come over because they've got something great. Roman thanks his sister, and Florentina can't help thinking he's really coming to save her. Next, the scene snaps to darts gear, every tool laid out like it's ready to explode into action. Someone says the crown prince brought darts just to kill time, but everyone hated it. Then a noble woman fiddles with the dartboard and jokes that the hero probably doesn't even have time to enjoy it. Roman cracks a grin and asks Florentina to run one round like the old days. She shuts it down fast, saying even if she did it with him, it would be pointless. Roman's eyes gleam as he asks Lady Trenmel if she wants to join him on the ride. Someone noticed she always wears that same look on her face, like she's plotting something big the second she starts scheming. All around them, people erupt into excited gossip. Is she rich? Is he into her? Did he finally decide to marry? Florentina shuts it down fast. No. Then someone yells for help because the crown prince, his highness, just called for the hero. At the garden party, one noble leaned in and demanded to know if there was any progress. Then the other noble groaned, apologized, admitted he was out, and waved them off. Go ahead, have fun without him. A dart streaks through the air toward the dartboard, and someone laughs, saying it's the perfect way to kill time. Florentina grips a dart in her hand and admits, flat out, she's never played darts a day in her life. Someone tells her, don't worry, everyone's stuck fawning over the crown prince, and sure enough, the hero is too busy basking in the attention to notice this tiny corner game. Roman grins at Lady Trenmel and tells her to come on, no holding back. A dart thunders into the board like a statement, then Roman snaps that it's time to get serious and someone challenges, so you can't do it. Florentina shoots back, then what about this? Roman leans in and whispers, beat me, and I'll spill a secret. That shortcut from the 8th to the 12th floor that only top-ranked adventurers and the guild's higher-ups even know about. Florentina can't stop thinking about that secret shortcut they never managed to spot, no matter how desperately they searched. She snaps back that if he flops, she'll turn training into a shield and unload a non-stop pile of annoying requests on him. Roman smirks and says, if she loses, she'll have to take my training instead, then leans in and asks what it'll be. Florentina shoots the question, do you know the rules of darts? And right away someone jumps in, yeah, the biggest score isn't in the middle. The dartboard is already scarred with 2 shots locked in tight. Florentina G. Trenmel's scoreboard blares, 130 points, and the full calculation breakdown is laid out right there for everyone to see. Roman lights up and blurts, that's exactly what I'm talking about. His matching score, 130 points, lights up on the board for everyone to see. He tells her to keep the momentum going, then adds, don't forget, there are only 7 rounds left. The tournament ratchets up with round after round. Round 2 hits a deadlock as both of them smash out 310 points, and round 3 doesn't break the tie either, with each player slamming another 310. The fight keeps slamming back and forth, rounds 4, 5, and they're still not done. With no edge, no advantage at all. By the time round 7 kicks in, the dartboard has them dead even, 210 points apiece, no daylight between them. In the final round 8, Florentina tells herself she can't lose, because if she nails the top score one more time, all she needs are 2 triples on the 20. Her expression wipes clean into pure, stunned shock. The dartboard is already wrecked, with 2 darts lodged dead center in the triple 20s. Roman bursts out laughing and admits, again, that she always lets the truth slip at the exact worst moment, and the final score tally screams that round 8 lands at 1350 points with just 20 left on the board. Roman grins and swears he'll go straight through the middle, because if he can't roll under 20, then he's done. But if he can, he still wins, and he might even call for a request that lets him smash it from the center. The dart hits, and the board flashes a brutal **20***, then Florentina stammers **, yelling that this can't be real as the result skyrockets to *1, 350, and right then, a stranger steps in, asking whether they're interrupting something. While speaking straight to the crown prince *. Roman's face snapped into focus the moment the urgency hit. Someone blurted that he had to get back to the guild right now. A magic device had spotted an anomaly, and a rider from the Segoa Dungeon Guild is already waiting at the venue entrance. Roman points out that something has to have gone wrong in the dungeon, because they wouldn't drag themselves all the way to the royal castle just to pick him up. Florentina rushes to apologize to the crown prince and slips away first, and from down below Roman tells her they'll handle it next time, then grins as he calls her sis, leaving her staring in pure shock. Meanwhile, right at the guild entrance, someone shouts for instructor Roman, and he rockets forward the moment someone demands, what happened? Florentina suddenly locks eyes on her guild card and realizes she's not getting that card at all, because they're hauling her straight to the end. A guild member drops into an apology for waking them up, then blurts out that the guildmaster demands they get back right now. A guild member keeps talking, claiming the guildmaster just blasted out an emergency summons to every capital's adventurer, and people are already hurt. And that magic device suddenly screamed, detecting an anomaly right in the core. Florentina and Roman's faces harden the moment they realize a stampede's tearing through the dungeon. Then comes a transition page. A llama with a sign points the way to the next page, and at the crown prince's garden party in the royal castle, the hero finally corners the crown prince, where's Roman. The crown prince leans in and tells him the guild's official report just hit. Some kind of stampede erupted inside the Sogo dungeon. He urges the hero to grab a word with the support association president and stay ready to leave the second anything hits, though he insists it's probably pointless since the rating sits at 335. The hero smirks to himself, thinking, so goes a beginner dungeon, so it's not even his turn to step up. Meanwhile, someone fires off a warning. If they don't handle this right, the anti-subsidy faction will grow bold and cocky. Then someone lines in and blurts, so, where's Ms. Trenmel? Then they learn she suddenly started feeling awful and called it, went home for the day right then. The story snaps to a dungeon entrance, carved right into the face of a towering cliff. Florentina digs in and gears up for her next big adventure, tightening the straps, grabbing her gear, and getting fully ready to go. The rules say only guild staff can waltz into dungeons. Everyone else has to slog through a bunch of messy procedures, so if you're an adventurer, you'd better get yourself registered with the Dungeon Guild first. Adventurers have it easy, no penalties for turning down requests or gigs, but there's one catch you can't dodge. Then Roman bursts in with the confirmation. There's a mass outbreak of poisoned small bats, something's gone wrong in the core on the lowest floor, and they've pinned it down. A stampede has already erupted. The guild warns them, once a freaky crowd swells inside a dungeon, adventurers get yanked into emergency duty, and they have to go all out to crush it before it gets worse. Meanwhile, adventurers begin piling in, every one of them dressed in some wild mix of gear and weaponry, while someone warns, if you skip this one, don't think you'll get the next chance without paying for it. And yeah, C ranks rarely, if ever, show up to their doorstep. Then the guild worker shrugs and says, sure, it's an obligation, but nobody's chained to a strict 4-hour rule or anything. The high-level raiders are totally sleeping on those low-level dungeons, and that arrogance is going to bite them hard. Someone jumps in and makes it crystal clear. They can only call in an emergency summon if you're C rank or below. But most people always cap out at level 45 anyway. Right now the numbers say only 2 groups show up, 1 solo D rank, 3 E rank parties with 12 solo E ranks, plus 1 F rank party with 3 solos, and just 4 C ranks total. And yeah, someone watching from the sidelines has to admit it's pretty damn thin. Florentina's eyes burn with determination, but you can tell her mind's stuck on something else. Right then someone brings up the Count's daughter, the one who backed the royal family's party, and suddenly it clicks. The guild master has been using every connection he can to pull in more help. Roman turns to Florentina and asks if she's truly fine, since she said she had plans for today, though at least his sister came along as some kind of relief. The talk shifts to one scary truth. This situation isn't just bad, it's dangerous, so if it spirals, the knights, or even the hero, will have to step in to stop the worst from happening, but here's the catch. If they force the hero to move, every single person in their guild gets fired, then the whole strategy finally gets spelled out. A lone C-rank adventurer and a 4-person E-rank party stand watch at the entrance to the lowest floor, cutting off those bats before they can slip up to the higher levels. Roman realizes he's got no choice. He'll have to work with what he has right now. A diagram lays out the whole scheme. The main force charges straight for the dungeon core, mowing down bats as they go, while every other C and D rank party fans out from the entrance. The training goes on. Each new E rank gets sent to hunt bats through spots they're told not to cross, and they tear into the swarm, dropping as many as they can. The top ranks will keep clashing around the core until it finally locks in and stabilizes. Suddenly, someone blares that they'll team up too, joining the 2 E-rank parties with instructors, but then the catch hits. Only 5 C and D-rank parties are available, and a wave of adventurers erupts in shock. The F-ranks are stuck on rear duty, guarding the guild's non-combatants at the entrance and in the safe zone. Then once everyone checks off their assigned area, they're meant to charge straight for the lowest level. Roman leans in and tells Florentina she's about to own the farthest, widest stretch, because she's top tier even among the E-ranks, crushing it in both skill and mobility. Meanwhile, right at the guild entrance, everyone scrambles and gets ready to roll out. Roman leans in and asks Florentina, back in your hometown, did you ever survive a stampede battle? She tells him the Tremel dungeon is meant for high-level fighters, yet her great uncle runs the place, so stampede barely ever hits there. She only mentions it once when she was tiny, and back then she was just a rearguard. Flashback snaps to Florentina wrapped in heavy winter gear, exactly like she was that day. Roman confirms she's only done it once before, but since she usually goes solo, he steps in and warns her, put your safety first no matter what, and if anything goes wrong, hit the safe zone immediately. So long as she's doing it just for fun, she better not burn herself out trying to overdo it. Florentina shoots herself the truth in her head. Emergencies don't give you room to hide behind excuses like that. Their job is in the deepest area, and if they sprint, they can reach it in about 30 minutes. No matter what it takes, they've got to slash the monster numbers before a stampede like this crushes them all. Florentina slams the declaration down. She'll wipe out every last one that comes at her action panels. She blasts into a frantic showdown, tearing through a swarm of poison bats as she whips out her gun and locks in to take them down at her feet. She shrugs, saying those poison little bats might be everywhere, but they're still just low-class trash. So long as they don't bite her, she's not worried. Then she stops and realizes what a stampede truly is, a dungeon catching a cold, and if adventurers actually take care of the dungeon's health, it almost never catches that cold. And the panels show adventurers in protective gear tackling the threat, until a stampede hits, the core goes haywire, and it starts churning out a flood of contaminated monsters, which will swarm through the dungeon and burst outside to spread the taint even farther. Florentina still remembers her great-uncle's warning. Once you beat those contaminated monsters, they crumble to dust and disappear. Like the panels show, bats get ripped down and instantly dissolve into floating dust particles. As Florentina charges straight through the swarm, she doesn't have a moment to waste, because to stop a stampede contamination chain and bring the core back to normal, the adventurers must find special medicine that wipes out the pathogen. While they scramble for the cure, Florentina slices through enemies with razor-fast speed and pinpoint precision. And then someone finally realizes it. This is what a real adventurer looks like. Then Florentina shows up at the exact zone she's been assigned. He'd already wiped out at least 50 bats by the time he got here, and not one of them looked real or normal in the slightest. She's got a little space to breathe for now, but her ammo supply is running out fast. She strides across the dungeon floor, shuts down every complaint, and steels herself, because she really doesn't want to resort to that method, and yanks out vials of blood from the clan's serpent they already took down, which she plans to combine with a ridiculously unstable chemical. Since the poison's little bat is weak, it goes for the wounds, injecting poison as soon as it can, and it practically melts at the scent of blood. Florentina turns that into her advantage, slicing through the swarm while another adventurer just waits in the dungeon, staring on. Florentina snaps open fire with blinding flashes, blasting whole squads of bats out of the sky with brutal, unstoppable precision. Florentina fires off a perfect shot, and the second her magical flash grenades slam the bullseye, she erupts in celebration. She clocks that they pack light and don't bring real killing power, but if she's up against a stampede monster, she'll ram it straight into destruction. She checks her stash, 6 grenades left, and steals her nerves, vowing to use every single one before the count drops to 0. Then on the 4th shot, she finally lands a brutal hit. Florentina decides to toss the empty vials into her magic bag for safety's sake, because if an emergency hits, everyone says you can leave materials behind. Meanwhile, the male adventurer comes into view in the distance, closing in like a looming threat. Florentina pauses for a breath, because this isn't some hunt for meat or supplies. She's fighting purely to dodge danger and cut the enemy down before they strike. She stares at her shut eyes and realizes this doesn't feel like her at all. Something is off, and she can't stop the thoughts creeping in. Suddenly, a huge swarm crashes in, and she snaps her mind back into gear. Thinking won't save her. 3 grenades left. The chaos around her finally quiets because she can't feel any bats anymore, and she can hear the world again, like things have settled down right here. Still, it's way past her assigned zone, but she has to thin their numbers anyway. Then Florentina snaps her scope into place and spots something that instantly sends a chill down her spine. The dungeon's bats swirl everywhere, all racing straight for the core. Out in the distance, another adventurer comes into view. She thinks about firing a signal flare, then snaps back to reality. It's way too far, nobody will catch it mid-fight. And right then, that awful gut feeling hits her hard. Suddenly, Roman's words slam into her mind, and the idea hits her, doing this just as a hobby. Florentina frets to herself. Can she slam full speed in her magic boots and reach the core before the bats do? Florentina rockets ahead in a full sprint, believing this is totally out of their reach now. For real, this isn't her vibe at all. Deep in the core, chaos detonates. Someone yells for everyone to shut the door. The male adventurer roars that they've got to keep the injured and the E-ranks out, but the whole place spins out of control as other adventurers scream for the instructor when things spiral fast. Then the adventurers stop dead, staring in total shock as a terrifying shape emerges. Calling it a mutant, the male adventurer blurts out the answer. In the dungeon, a massive corrupted thunder bear looms like a nightmare, so overwhelming it steals your breath, and then someone explains. These are the corrupted beasts, high-level monsters that command and control the other creatures, and the dungeon core only spits them out during a stampede. The male adventurer warns everyone, don't make a reckless move, but another adventurer cracks a grin and says, don't worry, I've got this. Then everything spirals fast. Someone spits out a curse as a fresh swarm of bats crashes in, and the adventurers shout for Roman and the instructor right when it's worst. Out of nowhere, something detonates in the far distance. An enormous explosion rips through the dungeon, lighting the whole place up. A savage swarm suddenly gets slammed by something out of nowhere, and the adventurers freeze, because they can feel magic blazing, while a monstrous roar booms from way off in the distance. The male adventurer snapped his head up, eyes wide, trying to piece together what the hell just went down. Someone screams for everyone to cover their eyes and ears and hit the ground. Then Florentina rockets in out of nowhere, hurling yet another flash grenade boom, and the blast tears through the area in rapid-fire waves, flooding everything with blinding light, while the male adventurer sputters in shock, asking why she's here, calling her sis like it all suddenly makes sense. Meanwhile, the blast erupts and sends bats tearing off in every direction, and several adventurers crash to the ground, gasping and shaking off the chaos. Florentina and the male adventurer lock eyes with the mutant thunder bear, and someone barks, "Fire, don't look away from the threats around you." Florentina whips out her handgun and fires. She even cracks it open with the stun grenade, but the creature doesn't even slow down. It's too huge, and all 6 shots slam into it and bounce off like nothing. Her gun just can't punch through that kind of monster. Fresh bats surge in again, and the adventurers instantly panic, yelling that the numbers are out of control. Then they rush to find the instructor and shout that the swarm is coming back. The instructor snaps everyone into motion. "Hurry, get back inside right now, before the danger hits." Suddenly, a giant swarm of bats erupts out of nowhere and crashes into the area. And as things spiral out of control, everyone backs off fast. Someone screams, "Hurry, get inside." The adventurers burst through the doors, fighting for their lives and slamming into safety. As the massive corrupted thunder bear rips through the dungeon, swarms of bats crash in behind them, taking over every shadowy inch. That creature's shadowy presence swallows the whole space, and everyone bolts inside, locking the doors behind them. Inside the safe zone, the male adventurer snaps out, pointing at the horrifying scraping outside, then hustles everyone into calm. Because yeah, there are tons of bats out there, but they're just small poison bats with nowhere near the power to smash through walls or doors. But then someone blurts out that the mutated one looks totally off, while the hooded mage insists it's fine, claiming they've got defensive magic stacked up. Meanwhile, someone leans in and asks, "So what's coming to mind? Did you lift too much, or did someone load on more weight than it should have handled?" The scene snaps over to a prosthetic leg, and you can practically tell it's worn down and broken from being pushed too far. As the group keeps chatting, a dartboard flashing with cold, hard calculations looms in the background. The male adventurer ruminates on it, then someone snaps, "Look, when you're an adventurer, wounds and poison like this are just part of the deal, and keeping low-rank adventurers safe is exactly what the instructor is here for." The real problem is that the mana won't flow smooth, so his output and reaction speed crash hard, mostly because the poison is messing everything up. Everyone digs in, and the tension spikes through the roof. Someone blurts out, "Is the male adventurer really all right?" Right as a fresh mutated one crawls into the chaos, demanding to know when reinforcements are finally coming. Then the person in the giraffe pattern headband finally blurts out that they're not hiding anything, they're just starving. Someone snaps back, asking how they're even complaining when their stomach growls at a time like this, and they shoot back defensively that they came in a hurry, no time to grab any emergency rations. Florentina suddenly whips out something that snaps every single person's eyes to her. Someone leans in and blurts, "So, what is Big Sis exactly?" The male adventurer sniffs it out and declares it thunder grizzly meat, super high grade, and the crowd goes wild, demanding, "Can we really eat it?" While half the people swear they'd die with no regrets if they got a bite. Then someone lunges in and screams at them to stop being reckless, because in this sealed space, fire doesn't just burn, it chokes everyone to death. They grumble about a burning stomach that just won't quit. Then it hits him, Florentina doesn't just have meat, she's got a whole mountain of sweets instead. The male adventurer tells his older sister that if she came to the dungeon like it was a field trip, she's still in way over her head, but then he gives her credit, admits she saved them, and deadpans that the snacks need to stay under 100 yen. Florentina happily devours sweets while someone shouts, "Don't forget to drink water." Even in an emergency, those candies still taste amazing to her, and right then, another voice asks if anyone needs medicine. The male adventurer snaps his head to his sister and asks, "Are you really enjoying this dungeon, right now of all times?" And honestly, the vibe finally eased up a little. One of the youngest adventurers just drops off to sleep on the spot, and everyone starts pushing the idea, "Let her rest right here, because you've got to take chances to recover when you can." And just like that, someone even shoves a cup of water toward Florentina too. Then somebody yells at the whole group to trade turns resting, because this is a long, brutal road. Florentina just lies there with her eyes shut, but she bluntly admits she doesn't have the nerve to fall asleep in a moment like this. The story snaps to a snowy wasteland beyond the royal capital, where someone shouts for Tina through the biting cold. A voice snaps at her that if she's stepping into that dungeon, she's doing it solo, alone. The figure keeps moving, telling her that even if terrifying, high-level monsters are waiting, she has to learn how to handle everything by herself. Hunting prey, pushing deeper into the wild, and even snagging a safe spot to crash for the night. Florentina stands in the snow, fully wrapped in winter gear, staring at the ground like these brutal lessons just crushed her spirit. Suddenly, the window explodes into shards with a brutal crash. The adventurers scramble in panic as bats pour in, and someone shouts, "The window has been smashed, get the boards." Meanwhile, the male adventurer strolls up, grins at his sister, and tosses out a casual good morning. Someone checks on Florentina and freaks out. She hasn't even slept for 30 minutes, and you can tell she's not okay. Chaos erupts when the mutant thunder bear smashes through the broken window. Someone screams, "Mutant," and yells to back off the window, because if you don't, they'll grab you and drag you out. That massive corrupted bear lunges in and yanks at the adventurers. People are screaming for help as they get dragged toward the opening, and someone shouts, "Abel." Florentina lunges at the creature and hammers a brutal punch straight into the mutant bear's face. The safe zone bunker is boxed in by mutant monsters, while bats churn the sky above it. Then someone inside blurts, "Hey, look at that," and draws everyone's eyes to the danger. Florentina plants her feet, weapon drawn, and shields the person behind her like her life depends on it. She blurts, "Big sister," and all the other adventurers snap, "What's wrong?" Someone shouted that she'd saved them, then begged her to rush and slam the opening shut before they lost their chance. So the crew barrels toward the shattered window, and instantly the arguing ignites. Then someone blurts, "That last hit shattered the defensive magic," muttering curses about what they're about to do, while someone tries to stay level-headed and insists they fix the window so it won't shatter like last time. But another voice cuts in, stunned and asking if Florentina is really stepping out alone to hunt that mutant. The male adventurer whips around to his sister and demands how she plans to bring it down, and Florentina just smiles, because to her, it's easy, grabbing a scope device and studying a diagram packed with trajectory lines. She's weighing if she can blast that moving mutant from afar without the bats ever sensing her, while the male adventurer's face tightens, and he straight up admits the gun might work, but the complications could get ugly fast. Then the male adventurer blurts out a question about a communication magic tool and a telescope. Boom, everyone freezes in shock. "You want those? Aren't they insanely expensive?" And they shoot back that not even the guild's budget would come close. Someone else jumps in and says Florentina burned through every single coin she'd saved before she even set foot in the royal capital. The adventurer tells the group, "Hand me the coordinates, Florentina won't miss," but someone immediately points out the scope's field of vision is razor-thin. Florentina's face snaps into a tight close-up, determination blazing in her eyes as she vows, "Next time I'll drive right through." Someone tells them, "Fine," then they lock in their money right on the sister. The male adventurer insists he's heading out with her, but the headband guy slams the brakes and warns that if they're going to be the spotter, the visibility in this shack is terrible, plus they're already poisoned anyway. Someone shouts that the spotter's prosthetic leg can't actually move, and the male adventurer snaps that it's reckless. Then he calls out for instructor Roman. As the group starts to form up, the dark-haired female adventurer steps forward and begs them to let her tag along, and someone immediately starts picking apart the plan. Then someone yells, "Is everyone ready?" And right as another snaps, "I'm opening the door," the adventurers explode forward and charge straight into the dungeon. The crew smashes through the doorway, and someone screams, "Scatter," while another yells, "Get the bats off that mutant adventurer." The bespectacled adventurer hurls their final stun grenade, and the blast erupts like a thunderclap, smashing the air with sheer force. Bats bursting into the air and cracking open the perfect opening. Suddenly, Florentina rockets into the sky at full blast, blasting off with her magic boots. She rockets through the dungeon halls with her rifle up and ready, while the hooded spotter below checks in and flashes the go-ahead. Then Florentina drops into position, primed to fire. The spotter snaps out the coordinates and reports that the mutants below the dungeon core are inching toward the upper left on a steady 20-degree tilt. Florentina leans into her scope, and through the glass she watches the huge mutant bear shove straight through a furious swarm of bats. The gun cracks, boom, and the mutant gets slammed by the blast. Florentina swears she struck the body and wings, but she didn't land a killing blow. Then her spotter can't get a clear view and demands a headshot, only for other bats to swarm right in front of its head and block the shot. Suddenly, Florentina gets hit with a swarm of poisoned bats, claws and panic everywhere as she tries to thin them out. Then her brother shouts her name with worry, and right on cue another wave of bats crashes in again, but Florentina forces out, "I'm fine." They're basically poisoned little bats with flimsy power, packed with toxins, but it won't freeze her solid right away. While the other adventurers keep battling the bat swarms down below, the male adventurer leans in and tells her, "If you're an adventurer, this should be nothing to you." Florentina nods and fires back, "Yeah, this is nothing." Then she screams for everybody to back off right now, way the hell away from her. The other adventurers flinch and step back as she keeps peppering the bat swarm from her sniping spot, but then Florentina's brother barrels in and smashes straight through the swarm with all his strength. Then someone yells, "Come at us," while he's still swatting off those damn bats like his life depends on it. Another adventurer yells, "What are you doing with all that blood?" The bats will mob at once, and the moment the blood blasts into the air, the bats surge in and come straight for the instructor. The adventurers below get buried under the swarm and fight to survive as it keeps surging in. The spotter leans into the scope as the bats sink lower and lower, calling out that the whole pack in the sky is dropping fast. Someone screams the coordinates and barks at Florentina to lock onto the dungeon core, sitting up in the top right corner. Florentina steadies her scope on the mutant bear and squeezes the trigger. She fires. And the shot slams in with a gut-punching, devastating impact. The mutant bear stumbles backward, and right in front of everyone, it starts disintegrating piece by piece. One of the adventurers blurts out, "So we really beat it," and right on cue that giant monstrosity crumbles to dust and disappears into nothing. The dungeon core's color began to shift, and the bats started vanishing by themselves, so the adventurers knew they'd finally cleared the worst of it and had to keep cutting down the rest fast. Then someone shouted, "Forget everything, focus on Instructor Roman and stop his bleeding right now." Suddenly someone's eyes lock onto something wild, and they scream, "Everyone look over there." His brother, Florentina's. Florentina slumps there, utterly drained, poison bats still latched to her face and body, but she's grinning through it all. Flashback hits old advice screaming in my head about diving into the IVA dungeon solo. The voice warned her to master everything solo, but it also told her she could still make friends and allies without them tagging along in her party, and then the memory cut to someone demanding, "So, should we really do that?" The advice keeps pounding the message into her head. No matter what brutal hardship she faces, she can't take it on alone. If she's got friends, then nothing can break her. This flashback proves it, showing Florentina with Roman back in the day, both suited up in his winter gear during their training. Back in the present, someone spots Florentina's scars, and the moment it clicks, recognition flashes in their eyes, their voice cutting out mid-sentence. Meanwhile, Florentina's brother clocks that she's finally awake. All the other adventurers burst out in relief, practically crying, "Thank goodness, our big sister is awake." Florentina fires off, "Is this a safe zone?" And her brother nods, telling her the stampede has finally been crushed. Right after that, the guild master showed up with an A-rank party, blitzed the last of the bats, and the dungeon core snapped back to its original color. "Nice, then I'm about to go in." Then she catches an insanely delicious scent drifting from somewhere, and the adventurers admit they're gearing up for a party because they just stopped the stampede. Florentina bursts out that everyone needs to wait until they're out of the dungeon because the injured are still hurting inside. And during the chaos, the guildmaster suddenly pulled out his secret venison stash, while the crowd in the very middle chanted in one loud voice that they wanted meat, and now someone's wondering if this is all their fault. That meat's hitting the grill any minute, get ready, because everyone's about to go crazy for what's coming. Someone says the two hurt ones can't have any because it'll be too hard on their stomachs, so maybe next time, and the other person tells Florentina to stop being such a stickler. An adventurer swears one skewer won't hurt. Florentina tries to stop him, but it's already getting dangerous. But before she can even react, someone's already shoving meat her way. Those wood-deraged skewers are prepped and sizzling, ready to go. The adventurers brag that this rare venison was pulled from a high-ranking wood deer and aged for 2 long years, thick, juicy, mouth-watering, and then hit with a smoky charcoal grill. Suddenly, Florentina's brother blares out to his older sister, right then and there. One of the adventurers they rescued grabbed Florentina's hands and thanked her like her mercy was the difference between life and death. And the whole crew, glasses-wearing woman and the older man included, packs in tight around Florentina and her brother. Florentina admits she spends her time solo dungeoneering, and it's her favorite hobby. She just doesn't do reckless adventures, throwing herself into crises, grinding through hardships beside her comrades isn't her style. It's totally unlike her, nothing like this at all. She grips the meat skewer with a conflicted grip, sure. The Sogo dungeon venison she tasted for the first time was thick, juicy, and downright delicious, but it also leaves a strange, ticklish aftertaste that won't let her relax. Then, just a little while after summer vacation kicked off, school opened its doors again. Every single time Florentina clashes with those unbearable parents. She dashes out of the house and barrels straight into the Sogo dungeon, while her dad screams her name from the mansion window as she sprints away. Because she's a hero of the stampede, the guild promised her she could rank up to D with no exam if she just submitted the application. But she flat out refused, so her rank stays E no matter what changes. She stepped in on her own and closed the distance to familiar faces like she already knew exactly where to go. She marches straight into the dungeon alone, no backup, no hesitation. Florentina keeps blasting through solo dungeon runs, trading blows with that massive wolf monster as the other adventurers trail her with watchful eyes from afar. She plants her tent inside the safe zone and sets up camp like she's claiming a lifeline. Later, she cooks up the meat she hunted, and as she lays it into the pan, real happiness lights up her face. The story jumps to modern times. Late at night, a stressed young student slams through their studies at the desk, while somewhere else, someone is curled up and resting inside a tent. Florentina's expression suddenly turns serious, like she's deep in thought. As the starry night sky blooms across the dungeon landscape, she's lying there peaceful as a whisper, fast asleep. She wears that satisfied smile, lets her mind wander and decides, dungeons are what truly matter, so you might as well step in for the fun of it. Then the whole scene snaps to modern Tokyo. On one side, Akido, a cram school teacher. On the other, Florentina, a JK who's also living here. And when Florentina brings up what she managed to grab right after it went on sale, she's not about to leave it at that. He wanted to take on Wild Game too, but the big city fought back at every step. The teacher just shrugs and tells her, you can literally grab it online. He was even plotting to whip up curry, so he snagged some venison, then told her, all right, fine, she can have some. The teacher casually admits he snagged it at a roadside station, because depending on where you live, you might stumble on it at one too. He's got a portable stove, but he decides to skip it. He's betting the stew on the slow cooker instead. Ingredients in a rice cooker are lined up on the counter, and Florentina leans in like, so you're not doing any prep like they do in that solo dungeon manga. The teacher shrugs and says, the meat from the market is already handled by pros, and then points out that at least the meat he grabbed was so good it didn't need any extra work. There's even a note saying the author tried a fast thaw with no seasoning, and somehow it still came out surprisingly good. After thawing the meat, he chops it into bite-sized pieces, then pats it dry with paper towels and gets to cutting. Then he drops the seared meat into the slow cooker, tosses in the chopped veggies with a splash of water, and slams the switch on. Because he doesn't have to babysit the fire, the teacher decides, screw it, and dives straight into the manga he just bought. The finished dish hits the table like a modern twist, Jabir venison tomato curry, served hot and ready to steal the show. Then comes the last move, dump the curry roux into the slow cooker and let it work its magic. Florentina takes a bite of the curry, and even with that bold meat flavor hitting hard, she realizes it's not gamey at all, just ridiculously tender. Then summer crashes in, and Florentina realizes she can't just coast through it, because every day she'd planned to spend wrapped up in her hobbies now comes with new expectations the moment homework's done. But just like that, everything flips. She gets yanked into a matchmaking summer retreat with His Highness, the Crown Prince, at the very last minute, and she's basically been dragged into it. Summer vacation just kicked off, school's officially out for the long haul. And Florentina's patience is gone. She looks furious with how everything is turning out. Then boom, Crown Prince Wilfried R. Abeldir Kadri Kanran steps in right there among the flowers. Several years ago, he was buried under the crushing weight of his official duties, gasping under the pressure. He used to grind day and night, then he declared, loud and unstoppable, I'm the guy who will become king of this country. In the end, he'll burn through every last dollar and every ounce of power he's got. They say the Crown Prince snapped, I'll marry the woman fate chose for me, no doubt, and everyone around him went rigid, because nobles and attendants could barely believe such a fiery promise. While juggling his official duties, the Crown Prince has been secretly hunting for his fated partner, pushing past every country, title, and status until destiny finally answers. Big matchmaking events like this don't happen every day, but when they do, the whole scene lights up. And if a lady has been personally nominated, she can't just turn it down, unless some truly extreme circumstance hits. Still, Florentina can't stand the last-second nomination, especially since they didn't even ask her first, and in her eyes her father is just that lousy old man, stuck with her role as nothing more than a replacement for the woman who bylaid. Right then, a maid bursts into the room and speaks directly to Florentina, because a summer retreat schedule has finally arrived, sent by the Crown Prince's right-hand man. A meet-and-greet party is happening today at 6 p.m., so she's got nothing but free time until then. Florentina tells the maid, they said it's totally okay, go on, let's slip out and sightsee. While most of the ladies stay cooped up in their rooms, gearing up for the party, Florentina grabs her courage and storms out the door. She's strapped in with full adventuring gear, rifle hair clip, magic bag, her favorite coat and trousers, plus magic boots, and no makeup in sight. Every item stamped with an **M* is magic, packed with its own special powers. At the window, Florentina declares, I'll be back by 6, but the maid shoots back, nope, you won't make 6, so Florentina snaps, fine, then be back by 5. She's got one wild hobby, she goes solo dungeoneering, no crew, no backup. She loves to roam, hunt, and camp, by slipping into dungeons scattered across the whole world, and doing it totally alone. Here's the twist though, she's not plunging into unknown, high-level dungeons at all, she's diving into brand new beginner spots that are already mapped out, the absolute ultra-low-rank stuff. Ever since she heard the summer retreat was coming to the city, she's been locked in, watching this place like it's about to change everything. Right now, she's standing at the dungeon entrance, cut straight into the rocky terrain, with the Eno dungeon for beginners carved into the mountainside. And right next to it, the Dungeon Guild building looms over the whole scene. Inside, a guild worker squares up to Florentina and asks if it's her first time at E-rank, then tells her to just jot down her name and rank on that bulletin board over there. After that, she's free to enter and leave whenever she wants. Meanwhile, Florentina glares at her gear hanging there, like it's daring her to step up. Someone says dungeon runs are usually handled this way, then another voice rips in, calling it sloppy. At the registration board, Florentina quickly signs in while the male adventurer waits right beside her, and he grins, saying that once anyone leaves their name in the register, even at his own gray tunkle's place, they pretty much get to walk away while everyone else leaves them alone. Then the whole situation finally clicks. Turns out the guild wasn't just some random group, it was a countermeasure against poachers, and illegal entry was only the start. The real bombshell was the guildmaster was about to get roasted, and those guys who got wiped out in the back, they were D-ranks. They were busy checking people in and out, while at the entrance someone finally yells, there's nobody here either. And right then, the male adventurer snaps into panic. What if he can't handle going to other dungeons anymore? Then a cheerful guild worker perks up and tells him, in the sweetest voice, to ask if anything confuses him. She even nudges him towards some bread, and insists he fill out the Seigo entry form. He admits he's gotten way too comfortable with Seigo's ridiculously thorough hospitality, and someone reminds him that before anything else, an instructor will guide him. The Anat engine's got just 2 floors, but trust me, that detail matters. The first floor is nothing but one huge, empty void. Florentina stands in the huge cavern, scanning the wreckage and the clues everywhere, while people bustle around, sorting their stuff down here, and she can't shake the feeling that nobody really lives in the dungeon itself. She catches the crashing rhythm of the waves, like the oceans calling her name. And if anyone dares keep walking down that endless spiral staircase, they're headed straight into something even deeper. A lonely island suddenly rises from nowhere, wrapped in endless ocean on every side, plus a blanket of clouds overhead. And the view is jaw-dropping. This mountainous island surges out of the water like a giant. Even though she's deep underground in a twisted labyrinth, Florentina still sees the ocean unfurling in front of her, waves smashing the shore as if the world above is calling her name. A whole parade of sea creatures churns through the water around the island. The ocean stretches wide into the horizon, and those brutal monsters lurk offshore, so everyone knows the smart adventurers take a boat straight for the cliffs, like right away. But once they aim for those walls about 10 kilometers out, it just keeps going, cliffs on cliffs, a never-ending gauntlet. Even with her magic boots, 10 kilometers across open ocean is a stretch for Florentina, so while there are plenty of coves and piers nearby, she decides, nope, I'm staying on this island. The walls glow this deep blue, like they're the real sky, waves crash in the air, and Florentina can even smell the salt tide, but the monsters are out there, somewhere beyond. For now, she might as well race along the shoreline and see what's hiding there. She figures hunting and camping are out today, but there's still something about this place that won't let her go. Flying creatures dive at her from above as she weaves through the jagged rocks. She picks her way across the jagged coastal rocks and keeps pacing along the shoreline. Then, out of nowhere, Florentina gets this wild, unsettling feeling, like she's walking aimlessly, but the air is telling her something's different. Then it clicks for her, turns out it's actually fun when the monsters occasionally scream, like it gives the whole place a perfect vibe, almost healing, and she can't tell if it's the brand new dungeon or just the way the waves keep crashing. It hits her in a flash. Those feelings have been shoved down for ages, probably ever since she started wearing her great-uncle's hand-me-downs. And yeah, suddenly, it all crashes back to her. Meanwhile, Florentina plops a fabric folding chair right on the beach's edge and sinks into it. Peace washes over him as the waves crash and roar, filling the whole air with calm. And she starts replaying everything in her head, barely any monsters on land, fires a nightmare to spark, and yet she really wants her tea, so she frets that maybe she's dropping her guard too far, even though this isn't a safe zone, and still, she eases back and lets herself breathe, because somehow this moment feels dead right. Suddenly, a tiny voice cuts through the air and calls out for Florentina. She lifts her gaze and freezes. Right in front of her comes this mysterious girl with huge eyes, blonde braids, and a fur-trimmed hood, and then she asks if Florentina wants some coffee. Florentina snaps still. She didn't even see anyone closing in that fast. The merchant girl whips her hands up fast, trying to wipe away the tension, insisting she's no threat while. She raises her adventurer's guild card like a spotlight on the truth and tells you she's a dungeon merchant, selling potions and all sorts of gear. Then Florentina finally clocks what's going on. She'd heard the rumors about real dungeon merchants, but meeting one face-to-face is happening to her right now. The merchant yanks out a menu, and Florentina scans it in awe, coffee options stacked everywhere, plus potions and steaming lemon water. The merchant jabs a finger at one of today's top blends, and Florentina flashes her pick from the menu. The merchant lights up and says, "It's coming right up," and then she drops a bombshell. Florentina is the very first person to ever order coffee from her, because everyone else usually just grabs medicine or water. She swears she'll brew up the most delicious cup imaginable. The merchant tells everyone she'll hand out free snacks to anyone who shows up with their own mug. Then Florentina just freezes, because she's sure she's won. And as the merchant cranks up the hustle, he starts brewing coffee, while Florentina just waits, locked in anticipation. The merchant gets everything perfectly set, brewing the coffee fresh and lining it all up, ready to serve. She darts in with a tray piled high with freshly brewed cups and sweet complimentary kawara cookies, apologizing up a storm for keeping you waiting. Florentina snatches the cup, inhales hard, and gets hit by the rich coffee scent, so strong it even drowns out the salty tide in the air. Then she realizes she hasn't tasted coffee in ages. And seriously, just the smell alone is worth it. Then the merchant turns to go and tells Florentina, "If we meet again, please order another coffee." Florentina stares as she walks away, still stuck on one thing: how unbelievably mysterious that girl is. She takes a sip of the coffee, and even though it's smoothed down to feel mild, it still hits back bitter but packed with real depth. The moment the flavor hits her tongue, she just stops and can't help but marvel at how insanely good it is. Meanwhile, the coffee hits and suddenly the cookies taste sinfully sweet, so Florentina realizes she's trapped in a non-stop cycle of sipping and snacking, and she can't break free no matter how she tries. Later on, Florentina wanders the area, replaying how that first dungeon run went in her head. Then she hauls out a chair, sinks down for a breather, and nurses a cup of coffee while she strolls around, soaking in every moment. She finds herself back in the beach chair, tucked under the trees, her sword propped against it while she grips her coffee. Everything feels calm, and a satisfied smile settles on her face. Florentina sprawls back in her beach chair, grinning like she already knew it. Dungeons are the best, especially when you're just doing it for fun, so she takes one last sip and heads home right after. Later, he arrived in a grand ballroom packed with nobles, where chandeliers blazed overhead like a sea of stars. Roman strides up and greets Florentina like it's no big deal. Roman tells how the hero came sobbing to his door, and the second Roman said, "I'm heading to the Eno dungeon for an inspection." Everything spiraled into chaos in the blink of an eye. Florentina snaps, telling him, "Don't you dare say that out loud," then fires back, "So why are you even here?" Roman keeps going anyway, introducing himself as a Sogo dungeon adventurer instructor. He tells Roman the hero basically begged him to take the crown princess trip for him, since everyone else was unavailable, so Roman could still handle it during his inspection, right? Florentina shuts that down, saying that's not a side job you can just tack on, and Roman points out their schedules already overlap anyway, so it all clicks into place. Roman swore he'd make sure Florentina gets fully compensated, and once that promise was locked in, the hero took off for a long-awaited family vacation. So Roman drops this bomb. Florentina's already planning to jump into the Eno dungeon the second she finds a little free time, right? He asks her to back him up for the inspection. Florentina says she's already planning to head there later too. Roman leans in and asks, "Wait, has it started already?" Roman calls her his regular customer and tells her, "Doing it as a hobby is totally fine, I'm counting on you," then admits he's slammed for time right now, so her help matters even more, and if anything feels off compared to Sogo or anyone else, she's gotta tell him. Meanwhile, Florentina can't forget the same kind of warning she got back during the stampede. Roman tells her that a few people might still be loitering inside the guild or hanging around the entrance, so he'll ask her again another time. Meanwhile, Florentina just stared into the distance, feeling dead inside, stuck doing noble lady chores the moment summer vacation started. Roman gives Ino the okay and spells out every detail, because Ino's way easier to reach down on the bottom floor than Sogo. She can soak it in for plenty of fun even with a short amount of time. They can't burn 2 whole days like they did with Sogo, but since this trip's all about the matchmaking, they're still going to end up with plenty of breathing room. Florentina's determination starts to crank up. This time she's grabbing every second of her spare time to dive fully into her hobby and love every moment. Then the story swings to a gorgeous seaside town where the Crown Prince's matchmaking summer retreat is in full bloom. Florentina is still there, waiting for His Highness. She's already wrapped up her greetings to the Lord and his wife, and now it's the day before the final day of her own matchmaking. She leans in and tells him she's completely free starting this afternoon, right through tomorrow night. With one more helper to coordinate everything, she finally pulled off that long-awaited overnight stay she'd been dreaming about. All right, now there's only one move left. A whole new dungeon time, let's go. Florentina grips a fishing rod like a weapon at the dock, muscles pumped and ready, because the hunt is on. She spends her free time soloing dungeons, loving the thrill of hunting and camping in beginner floors, but every time she steps into a brand new dungeon, she makes hunting her first move. Turns out the Ino dungeon isn't a dungeon at all, it's basically an ocean, and Dungeon Florentina is out there in a tiny boat, fishing with a rod, finally realizing this isn't hunting, it's real fishing. She's got a bargain fishing rod she snagged for cheap, standing at the Sogo headwaters and staring into the water like, am I even about to reel in a single catch? She's used to stalking all day and still striking out, so she eases into it, slow, steady, no panic. Yesterday was actually kind of fun just hanging around, so tonight she lets the bait sink in and drops the clan serpent meat into the water. Florentina settles in, expecting tea and snacks, then almost instantly, something bites hard. The rod whips and bends with violent force, and she snaps to attention, realizing the power is unreal. The fishing rod is one crank away from snapping. Then a scummy lower-class monster slinks into the scene, an enraged walk shark. A monstrous creature lunges toward Florentina's boat and clamps its massive jaws shut with a brutal snap. Florentina slashes at the shark with her sword in a full-blown, explosive showdown. She finally brings it down, but the moment it's over, she realizes she fired her gun on pure reflex, way too close for comfort. Even though the meat was tender, the impact still launched it flying, and she's left wondering, do those violent swarms really hit this hard in a beginner dungeon? For now, she grabs her shark, rinses it off, and shoves it straight into her magic bag. Florentina heard that keeping the food fresh and wiping out sea monsters mattered more than anything, so she tried to stay sharp, but she didn't even get a moment to breathe. She decides to stay out on the water and keep fishing until evening for now. But just as she's thinking about quitting, her fishing rod finally gives out. 30 minutes later, she reeled in 12 fish, and that rod held up way better than anyone could have guessed. Thing is, it's way too soon to bolt for the safe zone, so she's stuck thinking, what now? And she starts eyeing the end of the pier like it's her next move. Then right next to the pier where everyone's crammed together, a shark bursts in and attacks. Florentina finally throws in the towel and heads straight for a safe zone. In the Ino dungeon, there are 2 safe zones, your lifeline when everything else turns deadly. One emerges from the middle of the Western Sea, rising like a scream up the tower, while the other's right here, halfway up the stairs, waiting to be reached. The island's safe zone is a giant donut-shaped haven, packed with big windows that blast you with a panoramic view of the island and the sea. Florentina can't stop imagining it. If they had a boat, she'd be dying to drag it out offshore and try camping right on the open water. She plops her tent down with a weird twist on the usual setup, but hey, it's good enough. All right, time to start dinner. She sprints to the water station to see the island's spring water gushing and flowing. She's fixated on how dungeon fish are totally safe to eat raw, so she's about to whip up that same dungeon fish carpaccio from yesterday's party. She lifts up the first shark she hauled in, knowing nobody's buying it anyway, so she grins and decides it's dinner. Florentina dives into the shark and plans to slice open the belly first. Then she discovers the liver is absolutely massive. She tears the skin away, works the meat free from the bone, then stops dead for a heartbeat. She finishes the dismantling, but the job was so filthy and ugly she blurts it out without all the gritty details. Florentina pauses, brain racing, trying to figure out what delicious dinner to cook tonight. But she ends up hurling together whatever scraps she can find lying around. Her meal ends with a slice of Baumkuchen she'd saved for a true emergency, plus beef jerky, raisins, and a mug of black tea the maid brewed for her right before she vanished. She takes a bite and the sweetness hits like fireworks. Seriously, some days are just like this. That tea tastes great, sure, but it clashes hard with jerky. Florentina's already decided she'd rather have soup or something warm instead. Meanwhile, the dungeon merchant girl is off on her own, convinced she somehow dodged that girl today. Yet as she weighs whether she should grab another coffee if they meet again, one thing hits harder than all that. She needs water, and she needs it now. Someone points out it even pairs great with wild grapes, though some days are just straight up like that. Later that night, the ocean falls silent beneath the stars while Florentina curls up and falls asleep in her tent. Suddenly, someone screams to hurry, because the feeding frenzy is about to explode. A lone boat rocked on the black ocean as a shark lunged in and got ripped apart in a violent frenzy. Then the crashing chaos jolted Florentina awake. She whipped her eyes open, peeked outside, and saw adventurers already moving, even though the world was still pitch black. Meanwhile, down at the pier, total chaos erupts as multiple adventurers clash over territory, shoving and fighting like it's the last spot on Earth. Some scream for everyone to stop pushing, while others swear they're claiming the pier because it belongs to them, and the most aggressive ones bark that anyone not properly geared up should back off right now. Now it finally clicks. Hunting from midnight to dawn is way better than trying it in broad daylight. Adventurers are busy hauling in their catches when someone drops the truth. Sogo is basically the same thing, but beginner dungeons are so low risk that nobody's actually raking in real money unless they clear tons of them, and there's even a picture laying out the entire beach operation. Then another adventurer steps in, barks orders to grab the ones they've already strangled, and toss them into the basket headed back to the beach. Those baskets can hold a decent amount, time slips inside them, and ice magic keeps everything frozen solid. At the same time, someone fires off a warning. It's time to stop going careless. Another adventurer backs it up. Then, out of nowhere, someone screams, "Move, get out," and orders everyone to rush to the beach because they've got to kill the lights right now. A colossal beast rips up out of the water, then someone blurts, "That's a dwarf hammerhead shark." A shark barrels in like a nightmare, and someone shouts that it's way too close. Meanwhile, an adventurer screams for the leader as the whole panicked crew realizes they've got no time left to cast a spell. Florentina jabs her knife straight into the dwarf hammerhead shark's head, but its skull is pure rock. So she rages that she can't even tell if she's hitting the vitals, and all she can think is, "I should have brought a gun." Then one of the male adventurers snaps, yelling whether she can tilt the shark's head up. Florentina snaps her magic boots to life and rockets across the beach like lightning, cutting the sand with pure boosted speed. The male adventurers unleashed enhancement magic and wind magic, turning their attack into a terrifying power surge. Then the full magical onslaught erupts, blasting the dwarf hammerhead shark into the distance with terrifying force, sending adventurers skidding across the water and crashing onto the beach. Florentina and the crew finally splashed onto the shore safe and sound. Then, on the beach with the defeated shark, one adventurer snapped that the dwarf hammerhead has been popping up near the pier lately, hunting both monsters and other adventurers. And everyone just stared, because those sharks normally keep to the deep waters. The bald adventurer smirks and says that head will fetch a fortune, then he demands a brutal bargain. Florentina takes the head and the skin, while his crew hauls off the carcass. Florentina's teammates burst into praise, shouting that her strength kept them alive, and thanking her for pulling them out of danger. The crew keeps arguing over the loot, until one adventurer blows a gasket and screams that the guild only pays up for butchered gear as weapon material. Another tries to cool him off, saying it's okay since they owe their rescue to Florentina, but the first one snaps back that if they feast on the meat themselves and just hand the guild the one part it wants, they can dodge going broke. The bald adventurer demands to know if Florentina's really tossing away that priceless head for next to nothing. Then Florentina smirks and offers to show them exactly how to butcher the shark the right way. She admits straight up she'd rather have the meat than the head, anyway, so the bald adventurer grudgingly admits it wasn't even him who finished it off. The crew hauls into action, tearing apart that massive shark carcass piece by piece. Florentina orders them to handle everything with kid gloves, warning them not to wreck the parts they'll need later. Then she snaps, "Work along the spine." The bald adventurer squints and demands, "Are you really sure you only want half the skin and a little meat? Because this can't be worth much." Just when the dismantling wraps up, someone snaps that Florentina screwed up and wrecked a walkshark earlier. Then another voice fires back, saying she nailed 12 walksharks in plain daylight and swears she learned the whole craft for butchering them. The bald adventurer squints at the containers Florentina lined up, then realizes she just turned that wrecked shark meat into clean, perfect mince. He takes one look and sighs. At least it's not smeared with blood and guts. The skin is peeled off clean, so it's good. Florentina blurts out, "Do you still have that wok shark I messed up earlier?" She suggests they should toss in some seasonings and aromatics to the minced meat and make it sing. Then he started shaving it down even thinner with a sharp knife. And when it's all done, you get wok shark namru, an old-school minced fish dish crafted with pure tradition. The bald male adventurer takes a bite of namru and instantly says, "This was made to go with drinks." Then he grins and adds, "But wow, it absolutely slaps on bread too." Florentina took a bite and tasted the dish. Then that rich, heavy bite hits, and suddenly you get a bold burst of fish and seasonings, and she can't help thinking, "Yep, this would destroy with bread." Then the whole group huddles in, firing off cooking ideas. One bald adventurer even says they could toss the minced filling into a hot pot or grill it, while another jumps in with a crazy plan. Mix in finely chopped mushrooms and root veggies, wrap it tight in shiso leaves. But just as the talk heats up, one adventurer suddenly yells, demanding what their leader is up to, and another snaps back, telling everyone to ditch the fancy stuff and taste the namru first. The crew sets out 2 dishes from their shark haul, serving dwarf hammerhead shark sashimi soaked in soy sauce, right alongside the rest of their catch. Then chaos erupts between the adventurers. One screams that the monster sashimi has to hit the table first, startin' with the jerky, and the male adventurer snaps back that he'll fix it right now, whether it's sautéed or fried, because it's delicious either way. Florentina takes one bite of the sashimi, and the moment the flavor hits, the meat practically melts right in her mouth. The whole group crowds around the table to chow down, and as they eat, they all sit with their first hunt in this brand new dungeon, full of unknowns, wild mistakes, and lessons they can't forget. Meanwhile, Florentina stared at the prepared shark meat and the feast they'd cooked up, and honestly, as long as she got to sink her teeth into something delicious, she was. And somehow, he managed to soak up brand new lessons, like they were right in front of him. That's it, she's had enough. Soon the squad finally hits the Eno dungeon entrance. Everyone cheers like they just won, but then someone snaps, "You took forever, way too slow." Turns out the rank exam proctor is already waiting, barking at them to hurry up right away. The group groans that it isn't their fault, since the cheap shared carriage was painfully slow, but the proctor snaps back. They were supposed to arrive last night. The male adventurer fumes, insisting they set all this up somewhere else, and rode all the way here because they were told they couldn't pass in Sogo, so they came specifically to take the exam here instead. The curly, dark-haired female guild worker nods and confirms it. This is the D-rank promotion exam. She tells them to pull one slip from the box and breaks down the rules. Clear the quest on your slip within a week, with 0 redrawing allowed, or you're done. While the Sogo dungeon takes 2 weeks to clear solo, this exam only hands them 1 quest, but the clock is ruthless and the tasks are brutal, and the real twist is they won't get an instructor, so they've got to survive as a trio together. One adventurer unrolls the quest, takes a breath, and reads it out loud like it's a battle bell about to ring. You've got one job: rip out both eyes of the Leviathan before it tears you apart. Everyone cheers and can't wait to start, until one person snaps into disbelief. They explain the Leviathan is the top-ranking monster in the Eno dungeon, the kind of beast adventurers might only spot once every few years, if they're lucky at all. One of the guy adventurers finally cracks and admits he's been doing this trade forever, yet he's never seen quests like this pop up in the lottery. Now he's saying if they want to take it down, they've got to hunt its eyes, because that's its weakness, but landing hits on both of them is going to be brutally hard. The bald adventurer throws in the towel on the spot, muttering that he'll just earn enough cash to grab a carriage home, while the others step in and promise they'll help him track down info if he really wants to. The talk turns to one wild question: if they push into the dungeon, will they even run into the male adventurer's sister? He says he asked her too, but she's so swamped it's like she can't breathe. Someone steps in and promises her a daily wage if she'll pitch in and help with the work. Meanwhile, the story cuts to the Lord's wife's secret private salon. Their guild just dropped a brand new cosmetic oil, straight out of the dungeon, packed with materials you can't find anywhere else, and it keeps skin improving every single time you use it, like it's recharging your whole face. Noble ladies flock in droves, circling it and itching to get their hands on the magic. And right away, one of them clocks it as the same cosmetic everyone's been whispering about. The ladies break into hushed conversation. One insists it's smarter not to mention it to highborn noblewomen, and the other can't stop asking who on earth even knows about it. Then the second lady pushes even harder. What flowers are they using anyway? A third steps in and says the ingredients come straight from the dungeon, so what herbs are they really? One admits they tested it yesterday, and their makeup came out totally different, night and day. Another smirks and insists this stuff will make even the crown prince notice. And just like that, the noble ladies keep buzzing about the new cosmetics. And then one of them blurts it out. Those ingredients are monster livers. The stuff everyone throws out, totally useless leftovers that don't bring a single thing to the guild. The blonde noblewoman finally clicks. Those merchant guilds are boosting their earnings by rerouting all the trash parts straight to a guild that can actually use them. Then the talk pivots fast. Everyone starts whispering rumors about the city's dungeon. A lady blurts that she's heard there are items that can make love come true, and another snaps in. She's been hearing rumors about something tied to a dungeon. The talk suddenly flips to the cherry shells from the Eno dungeon. This noble lady leans in and says they're ridiculously fragile, and finding one still in perfect condition is basically a miracle. A female adventurer stumbled on two of them, then turned them into earrings, until a prince from another kingdom spotted her, and they married. Ever since then, that blonde noble can't help but notice how those shells turned into a full-on love charm obsession among young maidens. She weighs her choices hard, plotting a treasure hunt, because landing on something like that could be the exact boost the crown prince needs. She skips the safe zone practice today and decides to shake things up instead of butchering sharks. Meanwhile, Florentina struts along the shoreline with her fork held high, shouting that the plan's totally changed. Now it's treasure hunting time. When folks picture dungeon exploration, they usually see themselves hunkering down, farming monsters and plants for a fortune, chasing after the treasures that pop up inside every dungeon like clockwork. But Florentina admits her guilty pleasure is going solo into dungeons. And honestly, it's heartbreaking. Humans first stepped into dungeons for survival, not for wonder. The male adventurer leans in and says, even in the top-tier dungeons, you'll still find adventurers pounding through the dark for treasure. Plus, there are non-stop reports of loot getting found all the time. But in Sogo's beginner dungeon, he hasn't seen or even heard about anything new for the past 10 years. That place is picked clean, and nothing ever shows up again. Florentina admits it's not like they'll always strike gold with items that deserve to be called treasures, but hey, there's still a shot they'll haul in some shells at least. She digs through the sand like she's hunting for something that's about to change everything, and lunges in, snapping down the low-rank biting clam monster like it's nothing, already plotting to tear into it later and enjoy every bite. Out of nowhere, a walk shark lunges in and attacks like a nightmare. Florentina clutches her fork like a weapon, swings it with confidence, and downs it in no time. The male adventurer straight up calls it out. This is the exact same mission they've always chased, just with new scenery. Florentina admits she meant for today to feel like a real treasure hunt, and honestly, it's amazing how much they've raked in so far. That's not what she pictured at all. Then her brother leans in and asks, "You okay?" Right then, the dungeon merchant girl pops up with a huge smile, waves them in, and asks if they want some coffee. Florentina clocks her at once, and the merchant leans in to say she's beachcombing today. Florentina asks what combing even means, and the merchant girl grins, pulls out today's recommended coffee and lard cookies, and explains that beachcombing is basically scouring for driftage that washes up on the shore. In the Eno dungeon, the dungeon merchant girl reveals this wild thing. Sometimes scales and bones from way too strong monsters wash up on the shore. These kinds of materials usually get snatched up instantly by specialists. She flashes a gorgeous shell in their hands and says, "Yeah, I beachcomb sometimes, and the best part, the guild will actually pay for these materials to craft magic tools." Florentina picks up one of the shells, staring at it like it's adorable candy, because it's just too pretty. That merchant girl says the prettiest ones are insanely hard to find, then drops the real bomb. She's been hunting the cherry shells her sister mentioned too. She tells everyone that tool and furniture makers will even buy up the shells, and Driftwood the guild turns away. Then they'll turn it into accessories and stylish furniture, so adventurers can finally scrape together some pocket money doing it. That merchant girl leans in and tells him, "One day I want to see a cherry shell, perfect, untouched, and still unbroken." The merchant girl says, "All right, I'm off," and Florentina shoots back her gratitude for snagging her coffee. And just as the girl walks away, Florentina decides to linger, knocks back her last sip of coffee, then starts hunting the beach, eyes scanning the driftwood for any buried treasures. She spots this massive seashell and snatches it up like it's pure treasure. Meanwhile, right nearby, Florentina's brother hoists a huge chunk of driftwood like it might save the day, then hesitates, unsure if it's even needed. Other adventurers shout at him, insisting he doesn't want it, telling him to hand it over to them. Florentina spots 3 of them, and it hits her. She only wanted a casual stroll, but beachcombing totally swallowed her up, and somehow she hauled in a whole pile of gorgeous treasures. Now her basket's packed with all kinds of shells and treasures, and she thinks, hey, maybe I should tuck these into my grandmother's birthday gift, because she'd love stuff like this. Florentina can't help wondering if the lady she keeps picturing is the one she's really after. Then he decides to scrub everything spotless, clean as new, and toss the leftovers to the servants, turning them into souvenirs. Florentina remembers she has to snag some clams soon too. Then she catches a mouth-watering scent in the air, and her eyes widen. Someone's cooking up something delicious, right in the safe zone. Florentina's brother locks eyes with her and shouts, there she is. Someone asks if she's around, and her brother shoots back, wait, didn't she? I've got errands to knock out today. Now listen to me, because I'm seriously fed up. The adventurers crowd together in the safe zone, dungeon merchant girl included, and when Florentina spots them, her face lights up with pure joy. Then the camera slams into a close-up of 3 shellfish. Her brother grumbles that it feels like God is flat out warning them, don't become D-ranks. As another adventurer curses the hours they wasted, convinced they'd finally land the single top-tier quest hiding somewhere in hundreds of cards, only to realize it's not happening. Meanwhile, someone shoves grilled snapping clams onto the table like a flavor bomb. Other adventurers corner them and ask, eyes wide, like they're not sure they're ready. But the group reassures them, don't sweat it, just one more adventure. Then they thank everyone for the food and dive right into the meal. That merchant girl practically glows as she yells that the clams are massive, unbelievably satisfying. Then she swears the sauce and broth hit perfectly together with every single bite. And just like that, someone chimes in, there's more already. A huge pot is stacked with clams, steaming away in a rich bath of wine. Florentina's brother grins and tells her, go ahead, of course you can have some too. And then bam, there's a close-up of someone grabbing a clam right out of the water. Florentina stares at those little plump bites in the broth, then pops one in her mouth. When she sinks her teeth in, the flavor explodes, the wine-sweet aroma swirls up, the big ones and the small ones both hit perfectly, and she blurts out, exquisite. Suddenly, the instructor clocks Florentina, and with a sharp grin, he greets her like he's been waiting for this moment. Someone hands over 2 stunning cherry blossom shells to cover the meal, and Florentina's brother leans in, studying them closely, then grins, because they've got an absolute masterpiece of a cherry shell. Florentina's eyes go wide when she sees how insanely good those shells are, and the group starts debating if cherry shells are worth reselling, until one person shuts it down and says they're not exactly in demand. Then someone drops the wild idea that they could be beloved charms, and that suggestion leaves Florentina staring, completely baffled. Someone tells you, back then, I hauled cherry shells to the guild with a bunch of other stuff, but they flat out refused to buy plain shells unless they had magic in them. Florentina nods right away, saying that if you don't believe in love charms, those shells are basically just worthless bits of shell. The talk whips over to trading tactics. Someone says Sogo would shove a deal through even if the buyer didn't want a thing, and another snaps back that Sogo wouldn't touch butchered meat from them. Then a guy practically cheers, pitching Thunder Bear meat for sale, but the next adventurer smirks, saying he's eating every last piece himself, and none of it is going up for trade. Florentina's brother promises to dig into it, then tells her to hit him with the details later. The dungeon merchant girl can't believe it. Her guild actually refuses to buy things like livers, driftwood, and those popular shells people are desperate to get. The brother swears by the cherry shell's reputation as a love charm, and if it's truly powerful enough to make feelings come true, he's ready to hand it to an acquaintance who's been struggling. Someone offers to swap him the stuff they've got on hand, and the brother snaps back, are you sure about this deal? Only for the other guy to grin and say, just pay off the meal with some hard manual labor. Florentina offers to trade too, but the other adventurer waves it off, because turns out she already handed him a load of items earlier. He also points out she helped during the stampede, and they still hauled in tons of clams, so he's totally set. Meanwhile, the dungeon merchant girl just stares at her shell, wondering what to do next. She can't shake the feeling that selling it is wrong, so she starts wondering if she should hand it to someone else, like her second cousin, who's finally old enough that a love charm could actually matter. And deep down, she admits she doesn't even have a real buyer, because romance just isn't her thing. Then the story throws up a narration box and tells you, straight up, that an object's worth can swing wildly depending on the time and the place. Right beside it, there's a gorgeous clam cradling a pearl. Someone suggests they should hand over the cherry shell to the dungeon merchant girl as a thank you for the coffee. Florentina lifts the shell, staring at it like it's judging her, torn over whether she's being selfish for craving this treasure in the right hands, hands that truly know its worth, because even the coffee she can sip in a dungeon is valuable to her. And those feelings, earned through people, can turn small stuff into something truly valuable. Or let luck bully him into changing his mind. The brother fires off a good for them. The merchant girl can't stop grinning at the extra item, and Florentina declares, food like that should go to someone who can savor it for real. At a tea party thrown by the crown prince, who's busy playing matchmaker, Florentina jumps in and declares she's snagged something rare, then dares everyone to hear it. Nobles crowd into this fancy event, and just like that, someone whispers, "Look, this prince is in a ridiculously good mood." Then the talk spirals right back to the cherry blossom shells they traded yesterday. Florentina's brother explains that the prince reshuffled his schedule just for him, so he figured those shells would spark some real conversation, and he hands them over as a gift. Florentina's father freezes in shock, but Florentina doesn't flinch, she just confirms it. Her fist tightens and she snaps at him. If he's going to hand her to someone, he'd better choose the right person. Her father snaps back with a furious yell, "So what do you want in return? Money, magic gear, land, status, or the throne?" And Florentina's heart drops as she blurts out, terrified, "Is it really okay for me to have something this valuable?" Then she stammers that the shell was only a gift. Then he goes through the motions to make sure it really works as a love charm. Florentina reveals the secret. She got premium coffee beans straight from import, cutting out the middlemen so she could buy them directly. They brewed coffee from the finest beans, harvested deep inside a high-level dungeon in the neighboring country. Someone blurts that it's wildly unusual for a noble's tea party, since it's coffee, not tea, and then her brother lifts his cup, savoring the sweet, lovely aroma like it's about to steal the whole show. Then Florentina's face hardens with worry, and her brother clocks it instantly. What's wrong? Someone throws out the idea, and Florentina's eyes light up. She's convinced it'll taste perfect with the chocolate sweets too. Suddenly, the brother snaps into shock and blurts out, "Wait, are people really selling coffee inside the Eno dungeon?" Florentina nods and says, "Yep, some merchants do hawk goods in dungeons, but it's usually only in the high or upper mid floors, where supplies are tight and every item counts." He scoots in close, eyes locked, and demands, "So you're saying it was better than this premium coffee?" Florentina's eyes narrow with worry as her brother talks her through it. He insists the coffee he drank there was seriously great, even with the timing and the place accounted for, and then he lets it slip. That kid's coffee somehow tastes even better. Florentina takes a sip and instantly realizes this coffee isn't just good, it's smooth, refined, and absolutely delicious. But she still remembers knocking back coffee in the dungeon, right out there in the open. Later, the brother leans in and asks if Florentina's free this afternoon. Then she grins and says, "Yes." Then the brother pulls out a battle-ready search plan, orders Florentina to sweep the forest perimeter and hunt along the eastern inlet. While the three other adventurers charge into the forest, he stays on standby. He'll blast through the rocky west side himself and keep them locked into the safe zone. He fires off a few more orders. If they spot any adventurers, they've got to ask what they've noticed about the dungeon, anything weird at all. And if a dungeon merchant is around, they should drag them back with the group. If they uncover nothing, no one panics. Everybody still meets at the rendezvous point in 3 hours. The whole crew breaks into a sprint across the dungeon, while Florentina rockets forward at breakneck speed, her magic boots blazing. Realized there weren't many people around during the day at all. With these magic boots at full throttle, he could whip around the whole island in under 10 minutes, turn them down to 20% power, and suddenly it drags out past 30. A pack of adventurers clocks her and instantly goes pale with shock. One of them blurts, "Big sis Shinsen." As someone demands why she's here, Florentina just smirks to herself, "I'll run 2 laps just to be safe." The adventurers kick off a heated debate about the dungeon merchant, and quickly clock him as the same straw hat guy. Someone says they started spotting him back in autumn last year, and the whole group jumps in like, "Yeah, he's who we grab snacks and water from," but then they all admit, almost in shock, they've never actually bought the coffee. They're basically saying he always appears at the exact moment they're dying of thirst, like he can just drift in whenever he wants, showing up super irregular like it's his choice. Florentina points out that he admitted he never started out from this country at all, and honestly, that explanation clicks perfectly. The chat keeps rolling and then someone blurts out, "He even said the fish here are delicious," and another adventurer chimes in, "Yeah, he's clearly latched onto this place. Honestly, he's been camped here for over 6 months now. Back when you first met him, he swore he'd bounce to another dungeon in about a month, but somehow he never did." 3 hours later, and it's like the clock vanished, time just blasted by in the blink of an eye. The brother leans in and asks how the search went. Then he admits that on his side he tracked down a couple of people, but the dungeon merchant is nowhere to be found. The group huddles together like they're about to switch gears, and one person blurts out, "We've got an awesome recipe for whale meat," while someone else immediately chimes in, "That's amazing." The team cheers because the veggies and mushrooms are all lined up, like everything's finally going perfectly. Then someone blurts, "Wait, are we heating up the hot pot?" Meanwhile, the brother stares at the search results, realizing the merchant's gone from the beach, so there's only one last move: sweep the forest or check the safe zone. Then the crew spots a cave mouth on the island's south side, and once they slip inside, they realize the dungeon core is down there too. He nods, admits he gets what's going on, and tells them to park this conversation and tackle it next time. Suddenly, the dungeon erupts into a downpour of rain, and someone yells for everyone to rush over right now. Right at the forest entrance, there's a bivouac spot waiting, perfect shelter when they need it. Florentina bursts in drenched to the bone, and someone immediately blurts out, "Are you and the instructor all right?" The brother huffs, "This isn't fair." The squad checks their towels are totally safe and confirms, "Yep, it really rains inside the dungeons." Then the brother leans in and says Sogo, "Es been rough enough that the worst they ever had was missing out on a few drops." Florentina grabs the next one. But then she reasoned there, DB dungeons where it rained, because back at her great-uncle's place, it always snowed. Just moments ago, everything snapped, pure waves crashing, the salty tide in the air, and the whole vibe turned electric. But now it's just the rain pounding down, and the deep, muddy smell of the earth rising up like a warning. Florentina quietly admits she actually likes moments just like this. Meanwhile, someone frets they might not have enough tea leaves and sets water aside, and Florentina cuts in. She's gonna boil it up and brew fresh tea. The whole crew huddles close together, while rain hammers the windows outside. Someone blurts, "Why did it have to start downpouring so suddenly?" As the squad jolts at the sudden, hammering rainstorm, then the dungeon merchant girl bursts in, soaked to the bone, and asks if they're running for shelter from the rain too, and the brother and Florentina snap into stunned surprise. In the pouring rain, the brother blurts that the merchant wasn't alone at all. He already had people ready to team up with for a wild party. He insists that every time he saw her, she was always alone. Then the merchant admits, he's right, but one person pipes up with a grin. The brother's sister is a loner through and through. The brother tells the merchant, "Show her your guild card, just in case," and the whole thing turns into a tense check. He spots that there's no name on the paper, even though that sales permit was stamped in their country, and he immediately asks her if she's from the kingdom of Gaspard. The merchant nods and says she's from Gaspard, then explains how, after her stepfather died, she slipped into this country on a friend's recommendation. Meanwhile, her brother spots guild cards with no names on them, then someone jumps in and demands, "So what's your name?" The merchant steps forward and introduces herself as Idiapi Honor. The brother finally clocks it. When she flashed that foreign guild card, nobody even blinked, because she was moving and acting like she owned the place. Then he finally works up the nerve to ask his sister's name. He also says they've got to reach out to the capital's chairman and the guildmaster in Sogo right now, plus the crown prince. Because everyone's heard their stories in myths and legends, but nobody ever thought they'd walk right into real life and meet one face to face. The brother can't shake the feeling that his sister is unusually attached to them, and he starts wondering if they've noticed it too. Idiot slams together a steaming cup of coffee like it's his lifeline. Grinding the beans to gritty fury, he poured scorching hot water over them. She slides in with a tray packed to the brim, cups clinking everywhere, and drops a plate of warm cookies on the table. With everyone still waiting, she laughs and apologizes, then tells them she's got 2 cups of today's black blend and 3 Café Alates brewing, and urges the whole group to grab some sweets to go with the drinks. The brother spots that incredible aroma, and the whole crew crowds in around the table, finally settling in. Meanwhile, even Idia can't hide her shock. This coffee service actually turned out amazing. The whole group starts sipping, and Idia lights up over the sweet flavor, while the others blink in surprise, because they were expecting something super bitter, but it's genuinely delicious. Brother nods and says it's good too, though he still calls out that it's not exactly refined. Florentina grips her cup and stares into the air, stunned by how that coffee smells incredible, even while the tide and rain blast their own sharp scent into the world. She still can't forget the pricey coffee the Crown Prince brewed for her. It tasted straight up amazing. Then the brother spots something and blurts out, "Hey, are you a Sakura guy shell?" Florentina leans in and asks, "Tell me, someone like me can really deserve this." Idia thanks her for the gift, and the moment Florentina beams back, Idia practically explodes with joy, calling her big sister like it's the best thing ever, while Florentina swears she'll treasure it forever. The group keeps sipping, and someone blurts that her coffee is the real deal. Then, when they ask for seconds, Idia cuts in fast. Refills are coming straight out of their own pocket. Brother grins and says it's the best coffee he's ever had, no doubt about it. Then everything snaps into place. Florentina's meeting with the Crown Prince is finally here. She's tagging along on his matchmaking summer getaway, and she's absolutely soaking up the side quest too, because 6 whole days have already slipped by in the Enote dungeon. Florentina stands there in a stunning dress as a maid fusses with her outfit, and she flashes an ornate necklace. The Crown Prince steps in to greet her, then blurts out an apology, claiming urgent business has slammed in, so they should pretend this meeting never happened, even though Lady Tremel cleared her schedule and bent over backward for him. Florentina accepts his apology, but snaps that she knows how wildly bold this is for her, and then tells him she's got one more request. The brother warns it's a hassle for a guy to travel solo, and the maid shoots back, so that guild doesn't mostly trade in women's goods. Meanwhile, Roman just stood there, sweating buckets and panicking, because Florentina was openly checking whether he'd come along with her. The Crown Prince tells you right there that Mr. Jailer, the one he introduced earlier, is about to march straight into Sheila's guild in the commercial district for a full inspection. And he made it clear he wanted Miss Tremble to team up with Roman. The Crown Prince's panic rips through his chest. He can't imagine she'd ever say yes, and then it hits him. Asking her to ditch the marriage interview just so she can act as another guy's lover is way past what anyone could expect. Meanwhile, Roman is totally stunned by what he's hearing. He can't stop wondering what his sister is really up to, like, is she actually serious? And just as the thought hits, the whole group snaps to attention when someone asks, but is this really okay? Florentina was already running her shopping fantasy in her head. She figured out exactly where Sheila's company had those cosmetics. Then it hit her. They were barely stocked on mana potions and fire starters. Their low-grade magic stones were running thin, and even the seasoning supply was low. So she started mentally making her list for souvenirs too, and she couldn't help wondering if she should grab a bottle, just in case. Then Roman and the Crown Prince just freeze, staring as the truth slams into place. She's totally lost in her own shopping spree. Later, Florentina and her brother march through town with a heavy basket of bread held tight between them. The brother drops to his knees and apologizes to Florentina. She finally gets the shot to become Crown Princess. Florentina pauses, visibly puzzled, like she can't quite process what she's hearing. The brother drops the bombshell. Turns out the Crown Prince didn't just decline the match, he rejected Florentina outright in that arranged marriage. Turns out back when the prince first met Lady Tremble, he even admitted she was charming, but zero destiny sparked in him, so he shut it down flat, and the brothers were left completely stunned by the whole revelation. Florentina snaps that she's only covering for the woman who bailated at the last second, and then she makes it crystal clear they had plenty of other people they could have chosen. She keeps all of this from her parents, because she refuses to have them shove yet another marriage proposal down her throat, and the brother finally realizes his dad has been pushing him into this recklessly. Florentina grabs her brother and begs him to make sure the Crown Prince's summer retreat goes perfectly, promising she'll see he's paid properly. Then she leans in and tells him, "You're the only hero I can count on right now." The brother's mind can't even wrap around what he's hearing. Then he blurts out, "So Florentina finally got hitched, and tell me, is the Crown Prince even her type?" Florentina shuts it down with a hard no, and as she starts heading back home, she's already plotting who she's gonna unload on first. Meanwhile, the spotlight snaps to the Sela's Trading Company building. Inside the shop, accessories and jewelry glitter in perfect order, and a staff member leans in to brag that these are their top sellers. Every single piece is crafted from materials hauled straight out of the dungeon. The stuff they scoop up while beachcombing, you can turn it into killer accessories just like these. Turns out that cosmetic oil is the lady's hottest pick, and Roman hands it to Florentina. She beams and vows to turn it into the lady's souvenir. Roman bursts into laughter when he spots the ingredients and realizes it's shark liver. Turns out the whole product started when an adventurer, tight with an alchemist, asked for it in the first place. Someone brings up that the image strategy matters too, and they'll break it all down if you ask. Meanwhile, Florentina is focused on getting it for her great aunt, keeping a tight grip on older sisters, maids, and even the folks at school, including the teachers. Then Florentina snaps to the truth. She'll need to buy 2 separate sets for her mom and her grandma, because nobles, goods never get stocked on the shelves. And yeah, this product was cooked up about a year back by an adventurer who was tight with their alchemist. Florentina blurts out that she can't afford anything pricey, and the brother immediately offers to treat her to something, just to thank her for coming by. They split up right here after this, and for now they keep strolling side by side, both hauling those shopping bags like trophies. The brother squints and says the price is basically the same as that fancy makeup from earlier. Then they keep marching through the store with their shopping. The scene kicks off outside a dried fish store, awnings pulled tight over overflowing displays. Florentina blurts out that she wants to go shopping, and Roman's face instantly flips with pure, instant reaction. A shopkeeper with a headband throws the dried fish store doors open and welcomes them in with open arms. Roman and his brother quickly say it, locking in those preserved foods is straight up crucial, because yeah, she's his sister, so it all makes perfect sense. Inside the shop, dried fish dangle from the ceiling and jars crowd every shelf. The shopkeeper tells you it's all local, fish hauled from nearby waters, seaweed, shrimp, and shellfish, made for eating, simmering into broth, and even for medicine. He's got everything you'd want, but he makes one thing clear: there's nothing from dungeons here. Then the brother points behind the counter and tells Florentina there's a kitchen back there, and pushes her to taste something first before she buys a single thing. 2 steaming glasses of broth sit on the counter, and the explanation hits. It's a powerful blend of bonito and kelp. Everyone crowds around and samples the broth at the dried fish shop. The shopkeeper grins and says, "Easy, toss dashi powder and a handful of vegetables into a pot, and boom, stew in no time." Then he leans in and reveals his secret blend, dashi made from shellfish and shrimp mixed together. The shopkeeper leans in and says, "Go ahead, buy it, and we'll even grill it right here so you can eat it on the spot." Grill the dried fish, and it turns fat, juicy, and full of life, because the ones stored in the back are salted and dried on purpose, so they last forever without spoiling. The shopkeeper gives them a warm thanks for the purchase, and Roman tells Florentina, "Grab whatever you want, but only take what you can finish." Florentina's eyes practically sparkle at the selection. Then the shopkeeper leans in and says that dungeon-grown shark and shellfish have suddenly exploded in popularity. The prices are still insane, but the rich folks won't eat anything else. Since fresh seafood was suddenly flopping at the market, plenty of it got dumped into processing, turned into things like dried fish instead. Roman leans in and asks when this change started. Florentina pauses for a beat and says it happened about a year ago. Turns out there was a full-on deficiency crisis. Dozens of people got slammed with Mona problems, and hospitals hit pure panic mode. Meanwhile, the shopkeeper grins and slides over a hot plate of grilled dried katana horse mackerel, like it's the best thing you'll taste all day. Florentina grins at her brother and praises him for nailing the Eastern chopsticks, like a pro, picking up the meat spoon effortlessly. And those forks make it a nightmare to actually eat this kind of fish. Florentina takes one bite, and her face instantly erupts in pure, absolute delight at how amazing it tastes. She raves that it's delicious. The saltiness hits gently, yet the umami punches through, and best of all, it's nothing like jerky. The meat stays tender as Roman freezes, eyes wide, stunned by the thought that this kind of flavor could come from ingredients that literally contain zero mana. Then someone brings up the meat her brother shredded for them, and Roman's expression snaps into that jaw-dropping realization. As the narration insists, the real heart of their cooking is about to ignite right now. The cooking starts, and they flood the pot with heaps of that same broth from before. Toss in some chopped green onions and a shower of sesame seeds. And he piled it high over a bed of Eastern rice. They slam down the finished dish, horse mackerel dashi chaisu, and that gorgeous bowl is stuffed with rice, shredded fish, and a broth so fragrant it makes your stomach rumble. Roman immediately blurts, "Wait, is there actual tea in this?" While Idia fires back, doubting the tea part 2, then someone laughs and tells them it's just the broth, though apparently in the East they really do add tea. Florentina leans in, asks if it's basically just a simple risotto, then takes a taste. Her eyes fly open, sparkling with pure, jaw-dropping amazement at the flavor. The shopkeeper breaks it down, how that pillowy rice and tender fish slide right in, smooth as silk, thanks to that rich, savory, aromatic broth. Then he shoots a question: does it make her want to just gulp it all down? Roman grumbles something about whether that's proper for a noble lady, and Florentina, absolutely thrilled, keeps enthusiastically slurping straight from the bowl. Then the shopkeeper throws out a guilty apology and admits they don't sell rice there. Roman blurts out that he's buying first, but Florentina snaps back that they've got to grab the rice too, and warns him he's not allowed to claim it first. The shopkeeper points them straight to the import shop on the main street, where they sell rice. Florentino's eyes widen in shock, as the shopkeeper suddenly heaps on huge thanks for their business. On the street, Florentina and Idia suddenly bump into the female instructor, and she greets them with a bright, warm smile. It's been ages since they last saw each other. She blurts that she didn't come just to catch up. She's here to meet the I-rank official with Florentina for their evaluation. Florentina walks up with a bright, cheerful smile, like it's all no big deal, Then the instructor leans in and asks if the two of them are really out shopping together. Idia laughs along as Florentina beams and shouts his name, and then they head straight for a specialty coffee shop, where a male shopkeeper in a bun tells them they've got imported beans from everywhere. Plus, he spots the instructor and swears he's a regular who always goes for the same exact blend. Florentina blurts out Idia's name again, absolutely buzzing with excitement. Then Idia blurts out that after Florentina and her brother grabbed coffee for her earlier, she wanted to refill what she'd used up, so the instructor offered to tag along. But then the guildmaster bursts in, seething with full-blown rage, demanding to know why the instructor is roaming around without permission. Right near them, someone snaps at the guildmaster the moment he shows up. Then he rips into the instructor for dragging Idia out alone, waves him off with a sharp "shut up," and basically says, "You have no clue what's going on in that dungeon right now." Florentina rushes in to step between them, pleading with the guildmaster to at least let him explain. Then a different voice snaps, ordering the instructor to march back to the dungeon immediately. Then the guildmaster swings his fist and smacks the instructor across the face, roaring that he's nothing but an incompetent fool. Bloodied and clutching his face, the instructor just endures as the guildmaster keeps ranting, saying someone like him is easy to swap out, all because he's the younger brother of the local lord, until someone blurts out a plea to cool it. Right then, Florentina stays unnervingly calm and asks if there's a stampede happening, and the guildmaster snaps back in shock. Idia snaps to her feet, blushing hard, and blurts out a fast apology for the trouble, then promises to get someone else to buy the coffee beans for her, and swears she'll rush right back to the dungeon. Idiot promises Florentina that next time she'll get a killer cup of coffee, and then he smirks, telling her he'll be back for her in the dungeon. Then Roman turns to both women and slams out a heartfelt apology. Idia and Roman turn and stride off, disappearing from the scene. Florentina and the instructor just stood there, eyes locked on them as they walked out the door. Florentina's face snaps into a serious, deep-in-thought look, and she starts replaying her whole life in her head. Wait, her hobby is solo dungeoneering, right? She tries to convince herself she should feel happy about that path, but deep down, something feels horribly off. When Idia swore he'd find her again in the dungeon, her heart lit up, like she finally had something to live for. Which is wild, because she's always charged into dungeons solo, doing everything her way. Then Florentina snaps. She realizes she hates this feeling more than anything, like something inside her is slowly withering away, piece by piece. She still remembers that day, shopping, stuffing herself on those amazing bites, laughing the whole way, because it was honestly awesome, but since they skipped the dungeon again, the whole day feels unfinished. The female instructor steps up and asks Florentina to join her for the rest of today's plans. Florentina apologizes, then refuses. But to keep Idia's smile safe from the nosy Eno dungeon staff, someone has to act fast. They dig through the dungeon's scheduling papers, realize the plans were set for the last day, and decide moving them up is the smarter play. Meanwhile, down the street, a voice booms out, Florentina, as someone calls her their regular sis. The whole crew rolls out together, and Idia hauls a monster cart packed with supplies, then nearby adventurers marvel at what they've collected. Idia turns to Abel and snaps that they've got to move fast, because the buyers won't touch anything that isn't fresh. With no magic bag to cheat the time, they're racing back right now, unless they've got a mountain of ice. Another adventurer blurts out that Sogo lets people borrow magic bags, just for lower anchors, but the guy straight up says, yeah, it's a paid rental, and it's nowhere near high performance, because the distance to Sogo is unbelievably long. Suddenly, someone blurts out in shock about the audit, and the headband-wearing male adventurer snaps that he'd been sure both his sister and the instructor had plans today. Then bam, a hand lifts up an official document, stamped with royal seals, and the voice declares it, an order from the royal family itself, plus the association headquarters in the capital, naming the Eno Dungeon and the Eno Dungeon Management Guild, is about to get hit with an audit. The guild officials freeze in shock. One of them stammers, seriously, you've got a problem with an appointment letter written by the Crown Prince himself. Turns out the beginner dungeon guild in the royal capital is getting audited, and the officials look completely blindsided. They've blasted warnings to every adventurer, stay out of that dungeon for now, because it's unstable as hell right now. Florentina immediately calls it out. This dungeon is so unstable they're throwing warnings out before anyone even settles in. Why aren't they out investigating what's causing all this, or at least counting how many adventurers actually stepped into the dungeon? These guys are just loafing around, reading, chatting, and ignoring their own job while everyone else walks in. Her sharp words hit like a slap, and one of them starts fidgeting, clearly freaking out. The male official scrambles to dodge the question, asking if she's part of the audit too. Then someone grumbles that she must be some newbie sister, while another voice wonders if she's actually a guild worker, not a real adventurer. Roman cuts in to set the record straight. She's a real-deal adventurer, and she'll be his bodyguard for the audit. Then he points out the other three standing nearby, and everyone else jolts in shock like they're hearing about all of this for the very first time. Meanwhile, Idia and Florentina practically glow with relief, sparkles bursting around them, because they'd been sure Roman was some huge guild boss after how casually he chatted earlier, until Roman straight up reminds them that Florentina isn't just any important person. If they'd spoken to her casually, they'd regret it way more, because she's the Count's daughter. As they pass a kid in a straw hat near the safe zone, someone leans in and blurts, "Did the leader say anything?" His answer is a flat no, because he's dragging his feet like it's no rush at all. Then someone chimes in. Even after all these years with no stampede, this whole situation still feels way too dangerous. Florentina asks whether they've seen him so she can pass along her regards, while the male adventurer swears he's probably still stuck in the dungeon. So yeah, Florentina's stuck in her mess and her only escape, solo dungeoneering, all by herself. She can dive into dungeons anytime she wants, then soak up every second on her own terms. And the only way anyone can pull that off is if the management guild stays locked in, keeping the dungeons perfectly stable. Alright, the group hustles down the stairs while they hash out what happened. Turns out an anonymous report about mismanagement hit the association HQ in the royal capital, so with royal approval, an auditor was dispatched to SOGO. From the very start, they already had an audit lined up. The talk quickly zeroes in on the guildmaster, yeah, the one Enos has, and they straight up compare him to Sogo's guildmaster, calling the Eno version way too stuck on himself. After all, this guildmaster is a massive deal. Their guildmaster is still on loan from Association HQ, and yeah, his job isn't done yet. Then someone blurts out that Instructor Roman is on his way, and another voice snaps that they should just quit already. The talk dives deep into noble politics and dungeon management, because for a lord, running the dungeon isn't just paperwork, it's survival with the roof over their heads on the line, and their domain gets judged on it. Reputation rules their world, so it's crazy common for them to shove relatives into top guild jobs just to crank up that prestige. The guildmaster let it slip that he's the lord's younger brother, so yeah, this is almost certainly one of those lord-side appointments. Then someone blurts out, yeah, sure, some nobles marry into politics to gain relatives, but others go even further and adopt dungeon managers who know how to run the whole operation. Florentina grumbles that nobles are forced to swallow all that drama, and when it's finally over, what they get is a noble daughter who's obsessed with solo dungeoneering. While everyone keeps marching through the dungeon, the lesson keeps getting worse. Turns out the weird dungeon isn't just stampedes, it churns monster numbers up and down, spawns mutations, and even decides whether treasure chests show up, while migrant beasts, and sometimes migrant humans, start spilling into the mix. Someone asks if it's really mismanagement since the stampede hasn't even hit yet, but then they snap back that one wrong move can turn things way worse than a weird outbreak, because even a beginner dungeon can explode into total disaster, and they're required to report any major changes to the country, no matter what. At last, the crew barges into the dungeon's core chamber, and the male adventurer snaps open his detection tools. Everything's working, no contamination anywhere, and nothing's twitching or activating. The massive dungeon core of the Eno dungeon looms right in front of them. Suddenly, Florentina catches the rich scent of coffee drifting through the air. Florentina scans the place, spots coffee books, a pot, and fresh scorch marks from a campfire. Then it hits her hard, that girl's been living here. The tent stays spotless, even though it's been standing there forever since it was first put up. And they uncover furniture and all the other supplies already laid out inside. Then her brother clocks Idia's carrying rack because she had it on when they ran into her earlier that afternoon, right when someone yells for Big Sis and the instructor to come look at something. It all clicks. Idia wasn't in the safe zone after all. Florentina can't shake the thought that those unstable conditions are really the weather, and right on cue, the wind slams back to life, the sky starts to go dark, and the waves turn vicious. Out of nowhere, a guy with glasses snaps his head toward the outside of the cave, something making noise out there. The whole crew snaps their heads toward the noise, and just like that, one adventure points straight toward the sea in the back. And then he hears a strange sound slipping through the wind, and before he can even react, the others snap at him not to start with creepy stuff like that. But they stare out at the water, and then something enormous barrels toward them. Then two massive sea beasts burst up out of the ocean, like they've been waiting to attack. Leviathans smash through the waves with brutal power, their massive bodies tearing up the sea and sending everything into chaos. The adventurers snap into shock. One of them blurts, "What is that giant monster?" And the next one quickly answers, "It's a leviathan." The deadliest monster in this entire dungeon, and the crazy part is, there are two of them. Another adventurer blurts out, "A leviathan came all this way to gulp down the monsters in the shallows, and that wind turbulence everyone's feeling. That's our magic throwing the air out of whack." Meanwhile, Florentina's brother leans in and asks if she can actually handle that signal flare. She snaps the evacuation signal flare into action in a split second. When they fire it, it'll scream, "We're retreating," and at the same time warn every other adventurer nearby to evacuate. Suddenly, more signal flares, ones other than Florentina's, erupt into the sky too. Other adventurers spot the Leviathan too, and the whole crew snaps back into motion, retreating to the safe zone for now, while two adventurers huddle up and start debating what just happened. One of them demands why the strong monsters aren't staying out at sea like they were told, and the answer is brutal. They bred like crazy, and now there's nowhere near enough food to feed them all. The dungeon's ecosystem talk keeps going, and then it hits hard. Out on the offshore waters, adventurers packed up, chased new bases, and never came back, while the ones strong enough to even fish out there simply vanished too. For a while, the Eno dungeon kept getting sloppy with its catches, but then a blessing landed, and the monsters exploded in numbers, turning the place bountiful again. So the dungeon's balance is spiraling out of control, apex species are multiplying, and everything's starting to collapse. Adventurers scour the island for low-level monsters, but out offshore the high-level ones just keep spawning nonstop, thanks to the blessing fueling them. Someone warns that once the numbers hit that level, contaminated, mutated leviathans will burst into existence, and if a stampede starts, those monsters will come pouring out of the dungeon in a flash. Florentina realizes this could get even uglier, then the instructor spots something and shouts, "Everyone, look over there." The whole crew spots a lone figure out at the very end of the pier, stretching out into the wild, rough ocean. The adventurers thunder toward the pier, while Florentina's brother yells, demanding to know why she's stuck down in the dungeon. Someone yells for her to sprint to the safe zone, and before she can move, another voice screams that she doesn't belong here. Then, at the end of the pier, Idia stands paralyzed with terror as a massive leviathan blasts out of the water behind her. Massive jaws yawn wide open, like it's ready to swallow the whole world. Florentina's brother screams, the weak spot is the eyes, and demands, "Can you hit it?" Florentina steps in for him and basically dares everyone to just do it, then straight up announces that's the truth, so they should forget the rank exam. Right after that, the other adventurers lose it, screaming for someone to act, and even then one guy admits he can't. Florentina tightens her focus and draws her bow, while her brother straps in behind her with that chain weapon ready to strike. Then the Leviathan's massive head looms right in front of them, and someone screams for Idia to get over there, fast. Then the water suddenly explodes upward, a voice screams that it's coming back again, and Idia just freezes on the pier, utterly paralyzed. Her eyes went wide with pure terror as the Leviathan tore through the water right beside the destroyed section. The Leviathan's assault smashes the pure debris and wooden planks to pieces, blasting them up into the sky in a violent storm. As Idia gets blasted upward from the wreckage, he spins through the air in a dizzy tumble, then smacks into the brutal, churning water below. The adventurers freeze in horror when someone shouts Idia's name, then another voice screams that the pier is getting smashed to pieces. The adventurers huddle up and double-check their gear. One grips a rifle, another swings a magic bag and pouch, and the last guy has a coat and a flare gun, because that's literally all they've got to survive. Then Florentina's brother blasts, yelling for her, while in the biggest, most dramatic panel imaginable, Florentina hurls herself straight into the savage water, charging straight for the exact place where Idia disappeared. At the guild meeting, someone bursts in shouting that Leviathan's been gobbling up sharks around the island. Then another adventurer snaps back, "No, it's Leviathan for real," and everyone's stomach drops because this is the kind of bad news that gets deadly fast. The instructor starts cursing, slams Idia as a bastard, and lays out the nightmare. It's only getting worse. Towering high above the dungeon waters, a massive Leviathan rips through the ocean with jaws big enough to swallow the sea, while debris and wreckage explode down around it. Then back to Idia. When the pier shatters, she dives straight into the water, sinking into the black ocean as memories crash back. An older man on his deathbed, surrounded by people, telling her she makes great coffee and that she should take over after him. He orders her to cross the sea to the land where the hero lives, and when he's gone, to slip out of the country before they ever realize. And through it all, he reassures her, if it's her, she'll be okay someday for sure. Florentina dives through the deep underwater and spots Idia, grinning because they found her so fast. Then she cranks up the magic boots, output, and rockets toward the open sea. While multiple leviathans spiral in the pitch-black water around them, she and her brother rush in to rescue Idia. Florentina clamps onto Idia, slams herself against a massive leviathan, and uses its body like a stepping stone, because the thing is hauling her upward, straight toward the surface. Even with those magic boots on, she still gets yanked off her feet by the leviathan's water current spell, dragged away like she's nothing. Her brother watches from nearby as Florentina pulls off the deadly move, both leviathans looming around them, and their violent surge slams her through the water as she fights to hold on, hands trembling, trying not to break. She checks the damage and thinks, it's not that bad, then she gasps, can't breathe, and instantly realizes it's a deep cut. Her brother lunges toward them, shouting to his sister in desperation, begging her to save Idia, even if it's the last thing he can do. Florentina's brother rips out a scream that they can't die, then boom, a shield of magical black spheres snaps into place around Florentina and Idia as they float through the water. Meanwhile, a monstrous whirlpool rips through the dungeon ocean. Florentina's brother howls for his sister and Idia, while someone else shouts, "What the hell is this? Is that Leviathan's magic?" An adventurer stands on the shore, staring as chaos erupts and the disturbance seems to chase something, until one adventurer spots it. Both Leviathans are slipping away. A terrified scream tears through the air, "Leviathan's here." The whole crew watches that massive fin slice through the water, and then it vanishes into the distance like it never even existed. Florentina surfs on a colossal orca's back as it bursts through the water, and a violent spray of mist and droplets rockets into the air. The creature slams forward with earth-shaking force, and her brother bursts into screams, "Hang on, big sis," as the orca rockets through the waves. Meanwhile, the adventurers on the shore stare in shock as the massive beast rips through the water, and someone blurts out the truth. A cross-beast forged deep in the southern nation's top-ranked dungeon, now the deadliest monster the sea has ever swallowed. One adventurer can't stop wondering what kind of monster this even is, while the other spots it, straight away, like the sisters clinging to it for dear life. Then Idia snaps to it. She realizes it's an orca. They keep talking, and they even claim it wiped out the kraken the heroes couldn't beat, because one hero once tamed it. Then when he dragged it into a high-ranked dungeon, it took over everything. But Florentina's brother shoots back, screaming that something this brutal has no business being in an Annoy dungeon. Someone steps in and says, "Yup, Idia's borrowing your form." It's the raw power of the first people, stealing bodies and abilities from creatures that came from another world. Exhausted adventurers thrash in the water, utterly wiped out and still too far from shore, because the creature won't let up and keeps tailing them, when one of them screams in pure panic, and meanwhile Idia, still in her orca form, keeps charging after them. Creatures swirl around her silhouette as power crackles in the air, then someone blurts out that it's the kid's gift, the power of the first people. Right after, Florentina's brother snaps that the one trapped inside is Idia. So yeah, one person's combat power isn't exactly sky-high, but then something changes. Someone fires back, insisting orcas are the real kings of the sea, so why does she keep bolting away? Her brother snaps back, saying orcas are terrifyingly strong because they hunt in pods together. He peers through his telescope, then goes, "There's nothing wrong at all." The adventurers huddled up, shouting, "We're hunting, no solo runs," and swore they'd stay together in groups. Someone yells, "Give it your all," and nobody hesitates, rookie or kid, it doesn't matter because this is a Leviathan hunt. Meanwhile, the brother leans in and asks, "Did you really leave almost everything behind?" And the answer hits like a lock clicking shut, "Yep, that's exactly what happened." Then an adventurer blurts out a wild plan, use those monsters splashing ahead to guide the Leviathan straight toward the inlet, where the ground is finally solid enough to fight on, because the beasts are essentially hurting them there. The orca rockets through the water, while Florentina and Idia cling to its back, blazing ahead like they mean to outrun the tide itself. But Idia's stomach drops. If they keep going like this, the Leviathans are gonna slam into them any second. Florentina's with them, so she can't dive deep or surge ahead fast enough. Someone yells that the Leviathans are still barreling after them. Suddenly, her brother snaps her name and asks Idia if she can hear him, then demands she jump once if she can. Then he screams at his sister, "Hold on tight." An orca's fin slices the waves as the brother screams, "We're taking off." Then the orca blasts out of the water into the sky with a jaw-dropping breach. And one of the adventurers blurts out, "It really flew," while someone else laughs and says orcas here like superheroes. Then they reveal the real secret. The hero who wiped out the kraken used a magic device that blasts sound waves underwater to train the orcas. While all this chaos erupts, the brother barks urgent orders through the comms, forcing Idia to rocket straight to the West Cove, dive in full speed, and blast Leviathan off their trail. He blurts out, "Is it even allowed if I borrow my sister's communication magic device without asking? That thing is insanely expensive." And the brother immediately snaps back, "Good luck breaking it. If it breaks, I'm charging the guild for the repairs." Meanwhile, Florentina clings to the orca's back as it rockets through the water, grabbing Idia's attention and insisting she can't chase any speed unless she dives in. Yet if she does, she won't last long without air. Her brother fires back through the comms, telling that idiot to chill and stop worrying about his sister. Then he blurts out exactly what's latched to Idia's back. The scene zooms in on Florentina's face. She's grinning like danger can't touch her, while her brother keeps talking, calling her a gutsy regular sister who still loves her coffee even when she's stuck in a deadly dungeon. A quick flashback rips us back into the dungeon, where young Florentina and Idia are together, side by side. Her brother yells at Idia to breathe, and right then Florentina shouts that she's going in for the dive. The orca rockets under the water, Florentina gripping on for dear life, and the two leviathans crash down right after them into the dark depths. Massive shapes slice through the water like they own the sea. Back on shore, the adventurers stare as the chase unfolds. One of them suddenly surges forward, the other eases off exactly like they planned. Since Idia kicked it into high gear, one of the leviathans switches to watching mode, and someone screams for everyone to race to the cove before they get caught. The brother fires off urgent orders through the device, and once they slip into the inlet, Idia has to slow her momentum and haul the leviathan in as close as she can, while, out of the three piers, she dives under the first two. Then the orca rockets skyward in one brutal leap, soaring higher than anyone expects as the command blasts through the air, "Jump as high as you can." Meanwhile, the leviathan barrels toward the pier structures, and the adventurers erupt into frantic shouts. It's coming and even slipping underneath the pier. The whole dock starts to buck and rattle as the massive monster roars past below, and they scramble to give the final instructions for the last one. The third pier. Suddenly, the leviathan rockets up between the piers in a jaw-dropping breach, exploding into the air as water crashes down everywhere. Far out, the orca and Florentina circle the horizon as the adventurers press in, stacking the wooden structures along both sides like a corridor to danger. A scream blasts out the command, then the massive beast slams into the nets, the trap snaps shut, and the leviathan gets tangled in the webbing stretched wide across the cove. The leviathan smashes and thrashes in the nets, its massive body straining like it's trying to rip reality apart as the webbing barely holds while chaos erupts. Adventurers scramble to keep the nets from tearing, someone shouts for Frank, and others yell for Big Sis. Then the whole group snaps back, screaming for everyone to grip tight and keep it steady. They refuse to let this legendary beast slip free and vanish back into the sea, so hands clamp onto the rope until knuckles go white, all of them fighting to contain the monster. Then Florentina lashes out with her extended weapon, Slam, and drives the spear point straight into the leviathan's eye, her expression fierce and locked in as ocean water drenches her face. She shouts that she smashed both eyes, because those eyes are the heart of Leviathan's magic control, and now the scale protection spell has to be ripped open. Down below, the adventurers can literally see her hit the creature's weak point and land it perfectly. Florentina's brother shouts the exact words he drilled into her, and the command booms through the air. "Aim for the temple." Florentina thrusts her spear in at point-blank range, slamming it straight into the Leviathan's skull. Brain destruction. The weapon drives straight through the creature's skull, and that critical hit lands dead on. Meanwhile, down below, the other adventurers snap into formation and coordinate their strikes to take down the netted Leviathan. He hammers multiple vital points while the restraints keep failing to hold, and the attack keeps roaring on, leveling the guild as it goes. Multiple adventurers launch themselves at the Leviathan's breathing organs, blades flashing as they slash and spear through the guild structures that are finally starting to give. Then Florentina's brother screams that the finale is here. One adventurer clenches down, strikes with everything they've got, and the spine breaks. The whole squad times their strike, slamming the Leviathan's spinal column in perfect order and carving through all three weak points one after another, while the Leviathan whips and thrashes in its nets, and the adventurers stay locked in on the piers. Meanwhile, the bald instructor in sunglasses just smirks and declares it was a perfect nerve kill. Then the next big question hits. Did they really need 2 attacks after Florentina's first strike? Someone fires back that the flavor, and even how long the meat lasts change completely depending on the method. Down by the water, an adventurer staggers in panic, yelling at the top of his lungs for someone, anyone, to come grab his hand. Meanwhile, other reports say the second Leviathan, lurking at the mouth of the cove, is finally slipping away, headed out to sea toward 2 targets. They don't risk chasing it too far. They pull back for now and plan to strike again another day. Suddenly, a woman yells for them to pull her up fast. Then the man in the giraffe print headband panics, blurting out that he's got prosthetic legs on his. It's like brutal weights are latched to both his legs. Someone shouts that the guild guy is going under fast, and bubbles churn upward as he sinks into the depths. As Florentina sinks beside the struggling adventurers, panic hits them, then it clicks. They've got to claw their way back to the surface, and Florentina can't stop wondering where it even is, her magic included. Her boots refuse to cooperate, and she can't haul the whole team up by herself, no matter how hard she pushes. Idia pops up beside the pier in her orca form, and from up on the rocks behind her, Florentina and her brother come into view. Before a memory crawls out, way back in the distant past. Right after this world was born, it was nothing but brilliance, gems glittering everywhere in the very first days. Then a flashback kicks in and shows two young figures tucked together, reading and soaking up the ancient tales. The flashback keeps rolling, and you see it all back then. The world handed every gem a name, and the very first one scooped them up with both hands like they were precious, grabbing each jewel gently one by one, while a young voice gasped at how stunning the stone was, and a cold, dark eye lurked in the shadows, watching. Back in the present, Idia grabs the massive orca as it rockets out of the water, with Florentina and her brother riding on her back. On the pier, the adventurers snap into stunned silence, because the moment someone recognizes this kid, they realize he's not just a kid, he's something massive. While some scream for everyone to hold back, insisting it's not an enemy, others blast for Sis and the instructor, because that giant hand just slammed into view. The massive orca form of Idia rockets through the air with a brutal slam, flinging people everywhere as they scramble to survive the impact. Someone blurts that Idia overdid the transformation and is now totally drained. And right as the chaos rips through the scene, the dark-haired brother and the blonde adventurer freeze in shock, because the beast thrashing around isn't just some monster, it's Idia. Someone screams for help right away, and another voice cuts in, saying this outcome is actually a good thing. Then the scene snaps to the ocean near the pier, where massive circular ripples burst outward, rocking everything in reach as someone shouts desperately for help. Suddenly, a memory slams into Idia. Some figure in a hat looms by a door beside a gravestone, staring straight at her and speaking in a grave, no-nonsense voice, warning her to listen close. If they die, Idia must bolt out of this country right away, and someday, surely, not as one of the people of the beginning, everything will change. Then Idia pops in with a cheerful grin, clutching coffee, and casually gushes that her own brew is absolutely delicious, like that innocent smile can fool anyone. That huge silhouette of Idia's face pops up like a promise. Don't worry, I've got this, you'll be fine always. Gravestone looms behind her, dead silent, and right now Florentina sits alone on a boat-like platform, weapon in hand, staring off into the quiet like she's thinking about her next move. The past crashes back in. Someone tells Idia that Florentina will finally meet them, the one person who truly needs her, and Florentina stares down at her weapon, absorbing every word like it's a spark. While everything's calm on the surface, one person proudly claims they finally cut down the Leviathan that was hunting them, only for the other one to slip away and vanish into the sea. Don't sweat it, someone reassures them. Then another voice snaps, what about the rest, and where's Leviathan in all of this? He blurted out to CIS with real worry in his voice. Right on the pier, the guy with the giraffe pattern headband suddenly snaps. He screams about his leg while everyone else crowds around, and it's obvious his prosthetic is wrecked or gone. In her dark form, Idia keeps bowing and apologizing over and over, swearing it's all her fault and that she's incredibly sorry. But someone jumps in and reassures them. Everyone's fine, except Sis, and it's totally okay, because she's had a prosthetic leg from the beginning, not some new change that suddenly appeared. Florentina's brother frowns in pure frustration and blurts, so that's how it is, huh? Someone apologizes for not making it happen, and yeah, the guildmaster basically told them, now you have to stay on guard and fend off the Leviathan that multiplied because of you. Idia's shadowy figure stares at it all and admits it plain. Maybe she's never been built to chase what she wants, but the dungeon still haunts her because she's one of the first and she can't just walk away. She didn't just want coffee, she wanted to run wild across different places, win over crowds one cup at a time, and one day open her own shop like her father-in-law, and that dream was everything. Florentina reaches for Idia the moment she starts talking. Florentina locks eyes with Idia and sternly tells her, don't let your love slip away, keep doing what you're passionate about. She's gotta treat it right, like it actually matters. Florentina clutches it tight and whispers her words like they're alive, then drops the real truth. She's drawn to the dungeon because she loves the darkness, because it's actually fun. She prowls in there, hunts, explores, and afterwards she's all about that camping life, doing everything that makes the thrill stay burning. Idia leans in as Florentina keeps going, and she admits she truly treasures the time she gets to pour into what she loves. Florentina finally snaps. She admits she has zero clue why she can't stop herself from going back into the dungeon. But then she stumbled on something new she's obsessed with, so that's exactly why she showed up at the Eno dungeon. She holds up Idia's coins or tokens in her palm and tells him straight up, "Don't you dare quit that dream." Suddenly, in her shadowy dark form, Idia leans in and orders their usual coffee like it's the next move. Check the link in the description. Florentina's saying you're about to get black, While the squad on the ground huddles over orders, Florentina's brother swears he'll take the same one. Then someone pushes for Cafe Ali. Another nods like, "Yep, we're getting that too." And a different voice immediately throws out, "What about the black one?" The brother says if it's Idia making it, then I'm good, he'll handle it. Idia's shadowy form breaks down into tears, and she thanks them through it. Then Florentina leans in and tells her, "You make the most delicious coffee." Then the camera shows the giant Leviathan's corpse sprawled on the pier, while adventurers swarm around it. And the brother mutters that it's a real tragedy his sister bolted back to the capital yesterday, saying she'd made other plans. And he was dying to let her take a sip of the coffee. Then, right on cue, a hooded adventurer boomed that they'd finally reached the meat section of the Leviathan's disassembly. Then the talk rips into guild troubles. Someone finally says, "Ever since we rolled into Eno, not one guild member has gone into the dungeon, like they've been waiting forever and somehow still can't get a single guild person to show up." Another adventurer points out that those older guild members used to pitch in with fishing, and that the past staff would regularly swing by to see how everything was going. Out of nowhere, someone throws a demand at the guildmaster, "Give a real explanation, right now," and presses him on whether he truly knows what's coming if he can't. Back in the guild office, the brother grips a pile of papers and tells them that most of it has already been checked. He lays out the timeline 2 years back, then drops the bomb. The guildmaster, who'd been running the place for years, finally succumbed to illness, and the lord's younger brother steps in as the new guildmaster. The second he stepped into office, clashes with adventurers, and even the other staff started exploding nonstop. The brother breaks down the mess behind buying dungeon goods, then calls out how they inflate those national recommendation standards. Useless junk with no magic. They don't even count it as worth anything. Once it starts losing its freshness, the price doesn't just dip, they stop buying it altogether. Someone says it's only natural. We sell top-notch dungeon gear, so what's wrong with that? But the reply hits back. Then the adventurers who come here can't even earn a living. Last spring, the fed-up guild staff all snapped and quit at once. Every single one of them walked out together, and the higher-ups started firing anyone who even tried to stand up for the adventurers. They basically swept out every single person who dared to push back, until only two kinds stayed behind: the ones buried under debt and trapped with no way out, or the ones who never even bothered to get an adventurer's license. The people who had no other choice, because once the skilled adventurers and competent overseers vanished, the dungeon started slipping out of balance, and every trap and hit kept stacking up, since no mana was left flowing through the halls. Someone blurts out they just wish this whole mess had been reported to the government, or right to the guild HQ, right then and there. Maybe it all could have stayed under control, until Idia crashed the party. The moment she started slipping into the dungeon again and again, the Enote dungeon roared back to life, monsters exploded in numbers, and the blessing rained down as catch after catch. And the moment the guild members saw it, they knew this girl had the power that flips the whole world on its head. Later, Idia, fully in her dark form, sinks onto a crystal formation in the dungeon and spells out how the people of the beginning work. The dungeon itself adores them, and just by existing in there, monsters and mana rise on their own. People are even claiming treasure chests started popping up out of nowhere, and travelers and monsters kept turning up all over the place, so now everyone's convinced the power of the beginning is meant to cage those people and lock them inside the dungeon for good. So yeah, someone snaps, if Idia can't leave, nobody gets hurt, right? Then they add, the guild basically told her to handle it solo, because the Leviathans only blew up in the first place because of her. And straight to the point, they call out whoever clocked Idia's real nature, staring them down like, "Yep, you figured it out, now talk." Florentina's brother admits that Idia staying for half a year is its own nightmare. Then Idia, in her dark form, blurts back with nervous honesty that she'd only assumed it would cause trouble. He keeps going, saying the balance that's shattered won't be fixed, just by dragging the people from the beginning back into the picture. Back at the guild office, Florentina's brother stands over a stack of documents and addresses, staring down the guildmaster, then declares that the man running the dungeon organization just made a brutal, unforgivable mistake in his duties. The guildmaster storms in and demands, "Tell me, are you throwing me out and booting me from my post in this guild?" The man with the document shrugs and says he's fine with whatever happens. Then Florentina's brother drops the truth. If he fires the guildmaster over this, Idio will be haunted by the guilt for the rest of his life. The audit results get announced, loud, sudden, and impossible to ignore. In her dark form, Idia sweats with pure nerves, and Florentina's brother snaps that they should call it mandatory guidance instead, only for the guildmaster to erupt in frustration at the very name. Someone snaps that it all falls apart because the guild masters bungled everything. Suddenly, the guild doors explode inward with a brutal crash. Then an official roars the news. Starting today, the Enro Dungeon Management Guild is being occupied by the Royal Capital Adventure Support Association. A woman representative steps up and declares, loud and final, that from now on the guild takes their orders and guidance. No one even dares to protest. But the armed female representative snaps that they can't exactly complain about getting taken over. A male official steps in and tells Lady Tribute to keep the peace, but she smirks and says she still has a talk she has to have with the guildmaster, while someone nearby looks absolutely stunned. Then Crown Prince Wilfried storms into the entrance. The story snaps to the courtroom chaos. Evidence slams onto the screen. A statement from a young lady who's been staying in town, and right beside it, the necklace. The report says a witness saw the guildmaster try to hurt a woman right in the middle of town, and the person who spoke up made it clear she was furious. Then the Crown Prince drops the bombshell. This message is from Lady Florentina G. Trenmel. When someone blurts out the Trenmel name, the Crown Prince snaps into action, saying the Lord wants him to cut ties with the guildmaster right now. The guildmaster drops to his knees just as the Crown Prince reassures him, "Don't worry, it's handled." But if he walks out on the guild master knows he won't find a home anywhere else. Lady Tribute steps in and snaps at the guildmaster, telling him he doesn't get to walk away just because he hit retirement age. She and her partner promised him tight, no-nonsense guidance, and Lady Tribute swore they'd keep a watchful, unbreakable grip so he wouldn't slip away on them. And then, nervous as hell, someone blurts out they don't want to get burned for breaking labor laws. Meanwhile, the crowd starts to stir, and the Crown Prince finally lets out, "Now then." He tells them the real reason he came all this way was to sit down with them and hash out something important. Someone calls out Lady Idia, and boom, she's there in her shadowy dark form, her long white braided hair and huge white eyes blazing against her black face. Florentina's favorite thrill, sprinting through solo dungeons like nobody's watching. After everything that exploded at the Enro dungeon, the crew finally stumbled back into the royal capital, so she figured she'd set up camp again at the usual Segota dungeon after being gone for so long, when Enchan suddenly calls in from the safe zone on the lowest floor, blasting a warm welcome to every single lady and gentleman. Florentina declares that right from this moment, the Roman instructor's souvenir giveaway battle is kicking off, while Idia stands there, looming right behind her. Florentina suddenly clocks a strange mishap, like she stumbled straight into something way too weird. She was really craving some quiet peace, just her, no noise, and zero stress. She even ended up at the same place, staring at the exact table of items, like she'd seen it all before, because most of it already feels familiar to her. Meanwhile, two people are showing off local treasures, Sheila's trading company cosmetics and the dried goods shop soup stock. But then the whole crowd circles this giant magic stone. Now someone's challenging it like, "Wait, is this really a Leviathan stone?" And the real shock hits, and are we actually allowed to take something like that as a souvenir? Then boom, the real prize hits the table, a sashimi boat, and it's the Leviathan sashimi. They swear they have to push through this round, but they miss the disassembly window, so they walk away with zero meat because the process won't finish in time. Then they ask if their sister can just pay cash and fix the rest later, and someone snaps at them to stop with that nonsense and just go home. Florentina breaks the news. This event is a showdown, and all of them will be fighting for that prize. And next week, the guild's brand new merch hits the shelves. It's a cutout of En-chan, and right as the various adventurers gather, the competition talk ignites. Someone says it's too plain and suggests monster hunting or magic. Everyone else jumps in, yeah, more adventure. And then someone asks, where'd all that hype from earlier go? Florentina declares, when we're ready, you can each grab one souvenir you actually want. Right away, someone snaps back, calling it a total money grab, and they even demand that if you messed up, you should buy a replacement for 3 gold. Then Florentina kicks off the competition. The crowd hangs on every second and someone barks, "Focus." But honestly, it's pretty dull because all that's showing up is the En-chan cutout. Florentina locks in on the Leviathan sashimi boat job, doubting her own skill, until she reframes it as gun maintenance, and suddenly it feels totally doable. Right then, Florentina's brother shows up out of nowhere, asking how she's doing. Idia lights up and greets him, grinning that it's been ages since she last saw her big sister. The male adventurer stomps in, declares he's done, and demands the magic stone right now. Then someone blurts that they already stocked up on items, and another one yells, "Same here." While all that chaos swirls, the dark-haired female adventurer grins and insists she's going straight for the most expensive cosmetics, because why not? Everyone's like, of course the support types crush it with their hands, and then bam, the magic stone isn't magic anymore, just a huge hunk of rock, because the ladies tore it apart and sucked every last bit of mana out of it, and somebody goes, someone scored the shark. He grabs that dark fin and all the dried goods, while someone else digs through sharp little accessories and cosmetics for their mom. Then another person spots the magic stone is basically out of mana and decides, we're grabbing dried fish too. Then the crowd bursts into reaction the second that sashimi boat hits the scene, stunned that what lands in their mouths is worth a whopping 5,000 gold, and it just melts on their tongues like it's alive. Florentina gives her brother the okay, and the male adventurer claims he's finished too, until someone spots they've still got souvenirs left and blurts out, "Wait, what's wrong with this situation?" On the right side, her brother tells it straight. They still have the Leviathan's bones and skin, but the real win was the fresh meat right after they cleaned it. Then another adventure cuts in and says, that doesn't really count as a proper follow-up. The bottom panel makes it clear. Everything's basically already shoved into the magic bag. Someone says souvenirs are gone, let's wrap this up, and right on cue another guy brings up the opening ads and the skit section. Suddenly, Florentina digs through the stuff and finds a hidden stack of papers waiting in plain sight. The guild booms that the main event is starting, right now, welcoming the new recruits with a party, and one person immediately snaps, "Why are we even stuck with fresh recruits this time of year?" Then Idia bursts in her dark form, rocking white braided hair, and introduces herself with a bright, "Nice to meet you all," telling them she started working for the Seigo Management Guild. Florentina shoots into the scene, and a female guild worker reacts the second she sees her. The Crown Prince lays it out clearly. He told them to hire Idia for Sagu because they couldn't just leave her rotting in the Eno dungeon like that. Idia tells everyone her special skill is crafting the perfect coffee, and someday she's going to serve it, plus drinks, right in a safe zone at the guild cafeteria. A bunch of adventurers huddle up and start digging into Idia's past. Then someone throws the big question out, is that kid really one of the first? Because the second the monsters get stronger, things are going to go bad fast. At the same time, others fret about strangers who have been popping in for one thing only, that treasure chest. Then Florentina shoots the instructor a bold explanation. She's not about to plunge into the dungeon every single day like at the Eno dungeon. A male adventurer takes a drink and swears that, back in Seigo, a long time ago, the place flooded with the first people as they poured in. And then boom, a full-on stampede tore through everything, total chaos, and he goes, back then, treasure chests weren't a prize, they were an impossible dream. And just like that, nothing about the monsters, or the mana, shifted even an inch. But he flashes a calm grin and tells everyone it's totally fine. Then someone yells that it's time to finally roll out the long-awaited social gathering menu. Another person points out that Seigo staying untouched by the first people's blessings is exactly why it's still stable, and they all marvel at how insane Idia's transformation was. Even back then, when hardly anyone showed up, Seigo had to jump in and help. Turns out Odin cooked up a feast of seafood, loaded with shark he dragged straight out of the Eno dungeon. Florentina stares at the hot pot. Yeah, it's scorching, but it smells so ridiculously good she's itching to dig in, and as the adventurers chime in, they rave about everything. The hampen's fluffy, the chikua hits just right, and the fish flavor and aroma burst straight into the broth and fish cakes, while the cabbage rolls are straight up tasty, and the daikon drinks in every last drop of flavor. Then someone says they haul in mountains of cranserpent meat from Sogo, and sometimes they snag a chunk so huge it's basically the size of a leviathan. Another adventurer swears it's their first time tasting cabbage meat like this. It's unbelievably juicy, and it's got that "I need one more bite" feeling. Idia gives it a thumbs up and declares it unbelievably tasty. Florentina hypes Idia's sister up like she's pure talent, says she should catch one of her performances, casually mentions the meat can be boiled or grilled, and then Idia's face lights up with total surprise, like there's something wild hiding inside. Eventually everyone's done eating, then one guy in a giraffe headband grins, says he's stuffed, and another laughs, that was delicious. Right after she finishes eating, Idia slides Florentina some coffee and asks, want some? The male adventurer grins, he says he can already drink it, then Florentina flashes a smile and calls it a sample coffee. Then this female guild worker suddenly shouts for her big sis, like she's calling her to the moment. Florentina sits back and admits her favorite escape is going solo into dungeons. Even when she dares a brand new dungeon, she always storms right back to the one she knows best. She scans a stack of dungeon pamphlets as people keep sliding her fresh coffee like it's nonstop fuel. A hand lifts a coffee ticket like a golden ticket, promising one free cup of their favorite coffee. Florentina tells Idia, "I've got my usual, just wait." Then someone checks the order and confirms it. Idia leans in and says the recommended pick is that bold black coffee. The story cuts to the group as they meet Florentina's new friend, discover a brand new spark of joy, and then dive into an unforgettable dungeon experience. Her favorite hobby just keeps leveling up. More and more things she loves keep stacking on top. It hurries along with a coffee tray while Florentina just sits there, sipping her drink. Eyes closed, smiling like she's in pure heaven. While fresh companions flock into the crew, the Segota dungeon turns into everyone's new favorite hangout. And yeah, it's just straight up fun.